The bride at this wedding was the daughter of the County of Sillin. The women were whispering. One of them heard that the bride was the daughter of Count Sillin and the late Countess. This year, Ravenya Sillin turned 16. This is exactly the age when girls dream of getting married, which is what made the situation even more remarkable. But people did not understand how Ravenya could marry a child who was only 8 years old. There was a big age difference between them, so this marriage was compared to an unwanted one. Everyone was wondering what the reason for this marriage was. Ravenya was young and pragmatic, and she received a considerable sum for this marriage. But still, many did not understand why the Duchess of Boldvan would choose the Earl's daughter from all the candidates. One woman heard that there was a close relationship between the Duchess and the late Countess. Adopting the daughter of a dear friend into the family was a decision to protect the young Duke. And in the end, it's just a marriage of convenience. At this wedding, the newlyweds were strangers to each other. The bride had not even reached marriageable age, and the groom was only 8 years old. The girl was well aware that people were whispering about a marriage concluded only for the sake of wealth. It seemed to her that the groom himself did not want this wedding. And yet, despite his age, the groom, Henry, promised Ravenya to take responsibility and make her happy. Henry seemed very sweet to Riven when he made this promise to her. He also seemed very reliable for such a young groom. Rivenier then also promised Henry that she would make him happy, but Rivenier could not keep her promise. Henry wrote her a letter about how he had become the best student at the academy and asked her to come to the graduation ceremony. Rivenier was supposed to come and congratulate her husband, but she was unable to do so. She considered herself a terrible wife who had failed to keep her promise. Henry kept his promise, and the 8 years that Rivenier spent with Henry were the happiest times of her life. Rivenier wanted Henry to be happy too. She believed that she was unworthy of this place from the very beginning. She wanted him to meet someone better and forget about someone like her. Time passed, Henry grew up, but he still could not forget Ravenya, and nightmares tormented him at night. Then a man entered his room. He heard a loud sound and got scared. Henry got out of bed and said that everything was fine and he had just had a nightmare. The man immediately realized that the gentleman had dreamed of the Duchess again. The man offered to bring Henry a cup of warm tea, but he refused, as it wouldn't make him feel any better. Ravenya appeared to him in his dreams almost every night. Every time this happens, Henry feels as if Ravenya is looking at him from somewhere and telling him that she is still alive. But even if this were not so, Henry never forgot about her for a moment. The girl sat in her mother's room and looked out the window. She asked her daughter, whose name was Nadia, what had happened, and the girl replied that everything was fine. For a moment, she just felt like someone was calling her. Heinrich was sitting in his office and working on documents. He had been sitting there since early morning, so he was very tired. Then a man came to him and brought Heinrich new documents that he had to look at. Henry was shocked that the man was telling him this, seeing how he was drowning in documents. The man said that these were important documents on the finances and budget of the Boldvan family. Henry asked Alice to do it himself, since he was the head butler, but the man said that he could not do it. This was generally the responsibility of the mistress of the house, but since she is not there, the Duke has to do it. Henry resigned himself to the fact that this was now his job, since the place of the mistress of the house would forever remain empty. Henry was curious about what happened last night. Alice said that nothing serious happened. Henry still wanted to know what happened. Alice said that the area bordering Hesse's territory had become noisy. It was reported that the inhabitants of the Hesse territory were mining in the States. Heinrich was angry. He did not understand how they dared. Henry knew that this estate was managed by Madame Nadia. The Hesse family consisted of a married couple and an adopted girl, Nadia Hesse, whose parents took her in 10 years ago when they found her lost in the forest. Heinrich wanted to personally go to the Hesse family estate and talk to them. A little fresh air wouldn't hurt him anyway. Alice said he'd get the carriage ready. Heinrich stood by the window and thought about Nadia Hesse. He wondered what kind of girl she was. Meanwhile, on the Hesse estate, people were working in the mine, extracting minerals. Then someone came to them and thanked them for this difficult work. It was Nadia. She brought the workers some water and asked them to drink it while they worked. The workers didn't understand why Nadia came to such a squalid place to do a servant's job, since her dress could get dirty. But Nadia said that everything was fine. Nadia believed that she should help as much as she could when everyone was trying to save their property, and she didn't even worry about the dress. People stood and discussed how Nadia had grown up. She was no longer the girl who had been brought to the Baron's house 10 years ago. Back then, she was very thin and quiet. They couldn't understand how she could grow up so quickly. Since the Baroness fell ill, Madame Nadia has been in charge of the estate. When people looked at Nadia, they remembered the Duchess who ruled the Boldvan house. Then Nadia noticed that a small child walked past her. She stopped him. Nadia explained to the boy that he couldn't be there because the mine was very dangerous for children. The boy said that he heard that the Baroness was ill, and he also heard the adults say that if they worked in the mine, they could pay for medicine for her. The boy also wanted to help the Baroness. He asked Nadia if he couldn't do it. Here a memory flashed through Nadia's mind, where Heinrich was talking about how he also wanted to help his wife. Nadia told the boy that she appreciated it, but the Baroness might not like it. She would prefer to remain sick than to force small children to work. Nadia told the boy that he had nothing to worry about and promised that she would do everything possible to ensure the Baroness's recovery. Nadia was confident that she would help the Baroness recover. This was her way of paying back the Hess family for giving her a new life. On that day, 10 years ago, Ravenna Boldvan died. But no one knew that Ravenna Boldvan, who was supposed to die, woke up in the body of a 10-year-old red-haired girl. Hess found her unconscious in the woods and couldn't just leave her there. She didn't know how it happened, but as soon as she realized she was in another body, the first thing she thought was that she didn't want to become Ravenna Boldvan again. Of course, there was something she had to leave behind, but she never thought about going back there again, because she felt that this place was not the right place for her to begin with. The Baron and Baroness never questioned her. They believed her when she told them she had lost her memories, and they adopted her. Nadia used the knowledge she gained in Ravenna's life, only for the good of the Hess family. She decided that this was her real life. Then the workers called Nadia and said that they had found magic stones. She was surprised, because they didn't think that they would be here, but Nadia was ready for their appearance. They spent half a day digging in the same place. Nadia was a little worried that there wouldn't be any stones there, but she was glad that they found them. Then 2 men entered the mine and asked the workers who gave them permission to mine here. On closer inspection, the workers recognized the men. They were the Boldvan Knights. The workers panicked. Nadia stepped forward and asked the workers not to worry. Nadia approached the Knights and asked what brought them here. They again asked Nadia who gave them permission to mine in this mine. Nadia said that this was the territory of the Barony of Hesse, so they did not need to obtain permission to mine on their own family. But the Knights said that this territory belonged to the Duchy of Boldvan. Suddenly, Nadia heard a familiar voice. It was Henry. He asked what all the noise was about out of nowhere. Heinrich turned to Nadia and said that he was seeing her for the first time. He asked if she was the manager of Baron Hesse's estate. Nadia froze in place. She stood and silently looked at Heinrich. While Nadia silently looked at Heinrich, he managed to examine her. She had fiery red hair, a disheveled appearance, and looked about 20 years old. Heinrich realized that she was the adopted daughter of the Hesse couple. Henry had never met Nadia before, but for some reason it seemed to him that they had already seen each other. Then the Baron ran up to Nadia. He didn't understand what had brought her to such a dangerous place, and besides, she left without saying anything. Then one of the knights approached Henry. He had important news. He reported to Henry that the barony's people had discovered deposits of magic stones in this mine. Henry was surprised that there were magic stones here. The knight said that the situation was extremely suspicious. The barony of Hesse should not have either sufficient funds or the necessary information to extract them, but they continued to dig the mine purposefully. Nadia interrupted the conversation between Henry and the knight to introduce herself. Baron Hesse also greeted Heinrich. Heinrich had heard that the adopted daughter of the Hesse family was smart, but he didn't think she would have the courage to mine magic stones right under the noses of the duchy's holdings. The workers were agitated. They realized that digging a mine was a bad idea. Nadia told Henry that this mine was indeed close to the borders of Duke Boldvan's holdings. However, this mine rightfully belonged to the Hesse family. Henry grinned. He didn't understand why Nadia was so sure of this. Nadia said that everyone believed that these ridges were the property of the Boldvan estates. After all, even the maps said so. However, they found records that confirmed that 100 years ago, when the House of Boldvan and the House of Hesse were married, the lowest part of the ridge was gifted to the Barony of Hesse. This mine was part of those very same gift lands. Therefore, the Barony of Hesse did not encroach on the territory of Boldvan. Heinrich did not think that Hesse's adopted daughter had studied the history of the barony of Hesse so thoroughly. He didn't understand how she knew about the events of a century that no one else seemed to remember. Nadia realized that she had just added to her problems. The Baron said that Nadia has loved to read since she was very young, and if we are talking about the history of the Hesse family, then Nadia knows it from the very beginning to the very end. The Duke was very glad that Nadia was so smart. She was the only support of their house. Henry asked the Baron to mark the boundaries of his territory as he saw fit, and to send documents confirming what he had said earlier. Heinrich said that after the investigation, they will consider how valid the Hesse house claims are. Then Henry said that was all and left. The Baron exhaled, his heart aching, because he thought that something irreparable was about to happen. The Baron believed that Nadia should have relied on him, since she could have been taken away. But Nadia said that she was the one who offered the loot in these places, so all the responsibility was on her. Besides, Nadia was sure that Henry would not arrest a person without good reason. The Baron reminded her that there were rumors that the Duke was a merciless monster, but Nadia said that this was not true. Nadia suggested that everyone return to their work. They needed to gather their strength for the sake of treating the Baroness. The Baron also decided to take one look at this magic stone. Nadia was glad that Heinrich managed to grow up to be a wonderful person. She used to tell him that he was like moonlight to her, but meeting Henry now, he seemed like the sun to her. But still, Nadia had no opportunity to return to him. Soon, the Duchy of Boldvan received documents from the Barony of Hesse. The documents were accompanied by materials confirming their authenticity. There were no signs of forgery or falsification. Heinrich was curious about the chances of victory if they challenged the Hesse house's right to own the mine, and Alice said that if they relied on influence and power, they would definitely win. Henry was interested in what would happen if he approached it from the standpoint of legality and justice. Alice said that in that case, Boldvan would lose, since the mine rightfully belonged to the Barony of Hesse. There are records that House Boldvan granted these lands to House Hesse 100 years ago, and there is no trace that the holdings were ever returned, even after contact between the houses was completely severed. Both sides showed no interest in the lands all these years, so everyone forgot about them. Henry didn't understand how Nadia found out about this, and how she could have known that a deposit of magic stones was hidden in the useless land. Alice said that it seemed that fate itself had smiled upon Baron Hesse and his wife for their virtue, for as they say, heaven helps the good. Henry was angry. He did not believe it, and considered these words pathetic nonsense. After all, if heaven really cared about the good, his wife would now be living happier than anyone else. Alice apologized to Henry and admitted that he had made a mistake. Henry said that he had been too harsh and suggested that Alice continue the conversation later. As soon as Heinrich met Nadia Hesse, he immediately remembered Ravenna. Nadia had impeccable etiquette. Even her manner of speech was equally abrupt. But what reminded her most of Ravenna was the way Nadia looked at him. Henry couldn't understand whether he was going crazy, because Nadia and Ravenna were completely different. Henry looked up at the sky and asked Ravenna to look at him, to look at what her husband had come to. 10 years had passed since Ravenna had passed away, and he still couldn't believe it. And now he was looking for her in another woman who was completely different from her. At night, Nadia sat in her room and read a book. Suddenly, the door to the balcony swung open. A gust of wind that blew into the room extinguished the candle. A couple of seconds later, a man approached Nadia and put a sword to her neck. The man was sure that it was Nadia who sent the letter. He didn't understand how she dared to take on someone else's name. It seemed to him that Nadia didn't value her life at all. Nadia turned to the man and said that it was outrageous not to recognize her mistress, even though they had not seen each other for a long time. The man noticed that Nadia was quite brave, but his mistress is not the kind of person that a nobody like her can speak about freely. Nadia asked him how she could repeat the handwriting of his mistress and find out about the key if she were an imposter. Nadia was sure that he came to her because he was interested in this, because if this were not the case, then, knowing his character, he would have ignored this letter. The man was Conrad, known in society as Viscount Odelli, a slave sold at the age of 5 to a gambling house to pay his father's debts. He joined the gaming table with nothing in an attempt to save his youngest, and nearly lost an eye. It was Ravenna who saved him then and gave him life. Conrad couldn't believe it, because his mistress had died 10 years ago. He had personally seen her body. Nadia didn't understand whether he still didn't believe her, so she offered to tell him more information. When Conrad was stuck in the gambling house, Ravenna asked him why he was in such a dirty place. Was he kidnapped, or was this just his moment of weakness? Or perhaps he was desperately fighting for his life. His puny life, like an insect. The one who took that worthless life was his mistress, Lady Ravenna. Conrad took off his cloak, approached Nadia, and asked her if she really was Lady Ravenna. Nadia said that, to be precise, she is not Ravenna now. After returning to life, she became Nadia Hess. Conrad got down on one knee and said that no matter what the name, she was his only mistress. It was a great honor for him to meet her again. Nadia thought that Conrad was upset because she didn't contact him immediately after they came back to life. Conrad said that was not the case at all. He was sure she had her reasons for it, just as she had her reasons for calling him. Conrad told Nadia that in that case, she could safely give him her order. Nadia was wondering if he still had the key he had once given to him. She wanted to return it. Conrad said he had the key, but since these records were more than 10 years old, most of the traces had disappeared. Nadia said that it didn't matter to her. She asked that the key be brought to her as soon as possible. Conrad promised to do so, but he became curious about what Nadia planned to do with the key. Nadia said that she was going to catch the villains and make money from it. The key is the evidence she collected when she was Duchess of Boldvan to take down the countless criminal organizations eating away at the estate from within. Even if some of it had faded over time, she could still make money from it. And besides, she was no longer a duchess, and she didn't have to worry about her reputation by taking money as a reward. Conrad asked Nadia if she really needed money. Nadia said that Baroness Hess was ill and needed medicine, but the prices were exorbitant. She recently unearthed a vein of magical stones, which she saved for an emergency, but the more money she had in reserve, the better. Nadia was sure that Conrad was wondering why she hadn't returned to the Boldvan estate. After all, if she became a duchess again, the prices for medicines would not be a problem. Conrad said that he would never dare to allow such a rash thought. Nadia said the reason was simple. Firstly, she didn't want to cause any trouble by claiming that Ravenna Boldvan had been reborn in this body. Secondly, if she had decided the matter, she did not want to use the Boldvan fortune for personal gain. Ravenna's father wanted to marry his mistress, so he tried to kill his wife. She asked her daughter, Ravenna, for help. She didn't understand why she didn't believe her own mother. As a result, the countess died. The servants did not understand whether Louise would now be the new countess. She even brought her daughter to the mansion. They were interested in what would happen to Ravenna now. They said they were willing to pay a huge sum if Ravenna got married. Ravenna's father and his wife thought it would be lovely if she could prove her worth in this way. Thirdly, Nadia never wanted to live as Revenja Silin again. She didn't want to go back to that place, so she was going to live with gratitude for the new life she had been given. Conrad supported Nadia, but warned that if it was revealed that she was Lady Ravenna, she would not be able to live a new life peacefully. At this time, Henry was sitting in the library and reading some book. He felt pathetic because he thought about his late wife and was now sitting and reading the diary she left behind. In her diary, Ravenna described the flowers that Henry sent her from the academy, and he told her that the white flowers, sparkling silver in the moonlight at night, reminded him of her. Ravenna became so curious that she placed them on the windowsill and waited for the moon to rise, and the petals really did sparkle in the silver light, so she admired them for a long time. Henry remembered those flowers clearly. As soon as he saw them, he thought of Riven and broke curfew to order and send them, for which he received disciplinary punishment. Although Ravenna felt awkward that he sent her flowers while he was busy with his studies, she couldn't hide her happiness. She was glad that his affairs at the academy were going well, and she wanted him to share news with her more often. She was interested in everything about him. Separation made her constantly worry about him. Henry believed that she should worry more about herself than about him. Then suddenly, some piece of paper fell out of the diary. It was a map on which Ravenna had indicated a certain place while she was alive. Ravenna was more meticulous than anyone when it came to property matters, so Henry was not surprised. Here, Henry carefully examined the map and noticed one marked place that was familiar to him. This was the same Baron Hess mine that they had recently found. Henry, judging by the mark on the map, realized that Ravenna knew that there were deposits of magic stones there. And Nadia Hess knew about this. The more Heinrich thought about it, the more strange it all seemed to him. After all, Nadia knew too much. No one had been interested in those events of 100 years ago for a long time, and that look in her eyes haunted him. Henry didn't understand if this was really just a coincidence. Heinrich decided that perhaps Nadia Hess knew something related to Ravenna. Henry decided that he needed to see for himself. It was late at night. Nadia was already asleep. She had a dream in which she was still little in Ravenna's body. There she was, walking with her mother. Ravenna brought her mother the flowers she had picked. The mother accepted the flowers and thanked her daughter. She thought they were very beautiful. She hugged Ravenna and told her that she loved her very much. Ravenna loved her mother more than anyone else. She promised to be the reason for her smile from now on and forever. After some time, Ravenna's father brought another woman into the house and said that she was now also their family. Since then, Ravenna had another mother and a younger sister, and he hoped that they would become friends. Ravenna, however, considered them strangers from the very beginning and therefore did not want to accept them. Her mother's expression was hidden in shadow, but Ravenna felt as if something had broken. After that day, the smile on her mother's face disappeared forever. Sometimes she would just sit in her room and stare into space, like a dead person. Sometimes she would start to destroy everything around her. Sometimes the woman begged her daughter to save her. She believed that the Count and his mistress were trying to kill her in order to obtain her title. This woman had already tried to push her down the stairs, but Ravenna believed that it was just an accident, and the servants confirmed this. Then the woman said that they brought her poisoned food, but Ravenna didn't believe this either, because there was no hint of poison in it. She didn't understand whether Ravenna had also sided with that woman, but the girl asked her mother to calm down and told her that she loved her more than anyone in the world. Ravenna wanted to help her mother, but her feelings never reached her. Eventually, the woman got angry at her daughter and pushed her away, after which Ravenna stopped visiting her mother. Ravenna was asked to come to her mother at least once. Her condition was worsening every day, and before it was too late, Ravenna needed to see her one last time. Ravenna could no longer tolerate her mother's hysterics. She remembered all this and cried even harder. The man apologized to Ravenna for disturbing her and left her alone. The woman didn't even get out of bed. Before her death, she kept waiting and calling for her beloved daughter. But Ravenna never came to her, so the woman died all alone. Ravenna was sad at the funeral, but she knew she couldn't help her mother. Her mother's death was so hard for her, as if she herself were dying. But at the same time, she felt relief, because now she was free. Ravenna's younger sister pointed her finger at her and called the girl a monster. One night, Ravenna couldn't sleep, so she went out into the corridor. She wanted to go and get some fresh air, and as she passed the room, she heard a conversation. Her father's mistress was glad that Ravenna's mother had finally died, and they had to spend a lot of money bribing servants and buying poison. But they had no other choice, because she was a noblewoman by birth, and if they did so, they could be caught. But everything went according to plan. Now they could drink and have fun, forgetting all the difficulties. After all, this woman was now the new countess. Ravenna overheard this entire conversation and was shocked by what she heard. Then, for the first time, Ravenna heard a voice in her head, telling her that her mother was right. She told her daughter that they wanted to kill her and begged her to save her. But Ravenna didn't believe her, and if she loved her mother, she would not have left her alone. But in the end, her own daughter's indifference killed her. And even at the coffin of her mother, Ravenna did not shed a single tear. After all, she really was a real monster. Nadia woke up abruptly because of this nightmare. She sat down and tried to calm herself down, because everything was fine. But the voice in her head again told the girl that it was her fault. Nadia didn't think so, because she hadn't been Ravenna for a long time. The next morning, Nadia brought her adoptive mother some medicine and asked her how she slept. The Baroness said that everything was fine. She thought that Nadia should have asked the servants about it and not taken care of her herself from the very morning. Nadia said that she wanted to do it herself, especially since they had not spoken for a long time. The Baroness's health improved significantly thanks to regular intake of the medicine. The woman wanted to get well soon and begin her duties. She understood that it was difficult for Nadia because she was at the age when she should be enjoying her youth, like other ladies. The Baroness also believed that it was time for them to start looking for a marriage partner for her. The Baroness was curious whether Nadia had anyone in mind, and she promised to support her choice, despite her chosen one's origins. Nadia, however, said that she had no one in mind. Nadia thought about who she would agree to marry, and the only person who came to her mind was Heinrich. Nadia never expected that they would meet him exactly like this. Henry had grown a lot and become stronger, and it seemed to Nadia that those boyish notes had disappeared from his head. The Baroness told Nadia that it was wonderful to see her working hard for her family and estate. But still, the Baroness wanted to see a smile on her daughter's face. Nadia did not expect to hear such words from the Baroness. The Baroness greatly appreciated what Nadia was doing as the future heir to the House of Hesse. But she did not want Nadia to torment herself. Nadia was treasured not only by her adoptive parents, but also by the people of the Hesse estate. Nadia remembered words from her past life. She was constantly told that she was a terrible daughter. Nadia realized that, as she thought, her place was definitely here. Nadia, going down to the first floor, heard a noise in the corridor and decided to check what had happened. There stood a young girl with long pink hair at the door. The girl noticed Nadia and said hello to her. The girl's name was Vivian. She came to serve Nadia. She asked Nadia to take care of her. The Baron did not understand what this girl was talking about. He told Nadia that she appeared suddenly and began to claim that she would be Nadia's servant. Vivian intervened in the conversation and said that she had not appeared out of the blue. The girl said that she came to this estate on the orders of her master, because Lady Nadia was Viscount Odeli's benefactress. The Baron still didn't understand anything. Vivian told him that not long ago, Viscount Odeli was driving past the Hesse estate and an accident happened with his carriage. But Lady Nadia, who was nearby, rushed to his aid. And only thanks to this, Viscount Odeli did not receive serious injuries. In gratitude, the Viscount sent Nadia Vivian to take care of his benefactress. Vivian turned to Nadia and asked if she remembered this. Nadia smiled and said that, of course, she remembered. Nadia was surprised that despite the state of affairs, the Viscount sent them his maid. Nadia thought it would be impolite of them to refuse Vivian. Nadia decided to let Vivian stay by her side. Nadia decided to start by telling Vivian about her responsibilities. She needed to explain everything well so that she wouldn't create problems in the house. The Baron was shocked. He asked the servant if this had happened to him. He replied that he didn't think that was exactly how it had happened, but it had been Nadia's decision, so he thought everything was fine. Vivian and Nadia entered the room. Vivian wondered if she looked natural from the outside. Nadia said that it was not bad. She explained a couple of nuances to Vivian. She was not allowed to grab her mistress by the hand. This is unacceptable for servants. Nadia also asked Vivian to call her simply mistress, even if they were alone. Vivian understood everything. Nadia was glad that Conrad sent such a smart child to her. Vivian told Nadia that their Viscount Odeli would do anything if it concerned the lady. As Nadia thought, Conrad sent her his most capable subordinate. Nadia was interested in what Vivian was good at. She wanted to find out so that she could use her abilities for their intended purpose. Vivian suddenly said that she specializes in murder. Nadia, hearing this, was confused. She didn't know what to answer. Nadia was shocked that Conrad sent her a killer as an assistant. Vivian said that the boss also entrusted her with protecting the mistress. From now on, Vivian will be Nadia's eyes, ears, hands, and feet. She was ready to carry out any of her orders, be it security, information gathering, threats, and manipulation. And she was also ready to work in her specialty. Nadia told Vivian that she didn't think she would be in any danger at the Hesse estate. However, the information Vivian could glean from the shadows was different from what Nadia possessed, so Vivian's abilities would undoubtedly find their use. Vivian said that she was ready to take any risk. She asked the lady to give her a task, but Nadia said that she had no work for her at the moment. Nadia said that the biggest task at the moment is collecting rewards. Vivian was disappointed, because anyone could have done this job, and her boss told her that working for the mistress would always be fun. Nadia said that, unfortunately, nothing could be done about it, especially since Vivian had come here as an assistant. Nadia asked Vivian if this job was too difficult for her. Vivian said that she is good at everything, and working as an assistant is her first job. Vivian said that she was simply temporarily blinded by the thirst for murder. She promised to become the kind of assistant who would stay with her mistress for life. Vivian asked what she should do first, clean the room or do the laundry, but Nadia said that was the maid's job. Nadia asked Vivian to come to her and help her sort out the documents on the table. Lately, Nadia has been so busy that she couldn't take them on, since they are all important, and she couldn't entrust them to the servants. Vivian couldn't understand whether Nadia was really sorting through all of this on her own. There were a lot of documents. Nadia said that her mother was not feeling well, and that her father was having a hard time coping with such work. And there have been more documents lately. Nadia was planning to expand ore mining, and Vivian promised to sort the documents. Nadia was happy. Now she had both an ore vein and a key, and she also had a reliable assistant. The beginning was good. Nadia hoped that everything would continue smoothly. Here, Vivian found an invitation among the documents and asked Nadia if she had opened it. Nadia heard about this invitation for the first time. She didn't even know what it was. Vivian told Nadia that the invitation was sent from the Boldvan house. It was an invitation to the Boldvan garden. They wanted to welcome spring with their neighbors. Nadia noticed that this handwriting did not belong to Henry. The letter was written by the Duchess of Boldvan herself. After the Duchess recovered her health, she began to frequently hold receptions in the garden. Nadia was curious about how the Duchess was doing, but she had no intention of accepting the invitation. Although the Duchess's garden and her warm smile still warmed her soul, the girl decided to put an end to Ravenna Boldvan. Vivian was upset because the Boldvan family rarely hosted receptions and generally did not participate in social life. She had already thought that she would be able to see Henry. Nadia didn't know that the Boldvans didn't go out into high society. Vivian said that if this was not a reception to which the Duke had been invited by the Emperor, he would never show up, and Boldvan himself did not host receptions. Vivian said the Boldvans had been living like this for about 10 years, probably ever since Lady Ravenna left this world. Nadia didn't understand whether Henry had been alone all these years. He always told her that he dreamed of creating a happy family. Nadia was worried that he could blame himself for her death, since everything happened on the way to his academy. Henry was a sensitive child, so Nadia thought that this was entirely possible. And probably, this is why Henry never married a second time. Nadia suddenly told Vivian that she had changed her mind. Nadia decided to attend the reception. Nadia was going to write a reply, and she asked Vivian to prepare a dress for her. She just needed to refresh her wardrobe for going out. Vivian has already decided what outfit Nadia will wear to the reception and what jewelry she will accessorize her look with. Nadia wanted to ask Heinrich herself why he avoided social life and why he didn't marry again. The Duchess did not expect that her son himself would ask her to organize a reception. Henry apologized to his mother for this, and she said that it only brought her joy. They haven't held any events for a long time, and all the guests have already confirmed their attendance. She believed that others were also looking forward to it, as it had been more than 10 years since the last social reception had been held in the duchy. While Henry was studying at the academy, Ravenna often organized events. They didn't have time to be bored then. Ravenna kept repeating that the house had to make up for the fun it had lost during her illness. She made the duchy come alive, but her true intentions were different. Ravenna wanted to make sure that the Duchess, having lost her husband, would not have time to be alone. The Duchess treated Ravenna well and thought she was a wonderful child. That's why she was very surprised when Henry asked her to organize a reception. The Duchess thought that Henry had decided to forget Riven and find someone new. After all, it was time for him to think about an heir. Henry decided that his mother was joking, since she was well aware that Ravenna would always remain his wife. The Duchess did not understand why he was going to hold a reception then. Henry said that it was for Ravenna. The Duchess reminded her son that if he organized a reception, everyone would start saying that it was for the sake of finding a new bride. And he suddenly declared that all this was for the sake of his ex-wife. The Duchess did not understand whether Henry was still conducting the investigation and reception. This was his part. Henry replied that everything was so. The Duchess became interested in what Henry had found out, but he said that nothing concrete had been found out. However, Hesse's adopted daughter and Ravenna had information that was known only to the two of them. Henry believed that if this was not a coincidence, then he had a chance to find a clue at this reception. Time passed. The day of the Boldvan reception arrived. The guests were already there. Vivian sewed the dress for Nadia herself. There are a lot of young ladies who want to attend the Boldvan reception, so the dress would have taken a long time to be hemmed in the studio. So Vivian took matters into her own hands and even improved it a little to suit her taste. Nadia was delighted. Vivian asked Nadia if she liked everything. She paid special attention to the stoves and waist, but she could have guessed wrong about the size. Nadia told Vivian that she had done a great job and that from now on, she would only turn to her for help. Vivian decided that Nadia was hungry and went to get something to eat. Now that Vivian was gone for a while, Nadia wanted to do her own thing. She walked around the garden and looked around. Nadia was surprised, because nothing had changed here in 10 years. Although some things have changed, the statue that used to stand there has disappeared. Nadia was delighted, even after so much time. Receptions at the Duke's house were still at the highest level. Here Nadia noticed Heinrich. He was standing not far from her and talking to some girl. Nadia was confused, even though she had noticed it last time. But Heinrich was no longer the same young man he had been in childhood. Nadia stood and admired how well he had grown up. Heinrich felt someone's gaze on him and turned towards Nadia. Nadia introduced herself to Heinrich and thanked him for inviting her. Heinrich asked Nadia if she liked the reception. She replied that she had been to many receptions, but this was the best one she had ever attended. Nadia thought that Heinrich often attended such events, but Heinrich said that this was not true. Nadia asked him why. Because he needs to go out in society to meet good people. She understood that it would be difficult for him to spend his time on this, but still, for their home, it was boring to do. Henry told Nadia that he didn't think she needed to worry about it. Nadia realized that he was right and asked Heinrich for forgiveness. She realized that Nadia Hess would never have said that, especially since for Heinrich, she was just the daughter of a neighboring baron. Nadia took a bite of the cake. It was made of walnuts and she really liked it. Genrich remarked that she liked the cake. Nadia said that the nuts gave it an appetizing aroma, which was complemented by the sweet filling. Then Nadia realized something. She was shocked that they had prepared something from walnuts for the reception. Henry also took a piece of cake and wanted to eat it. But Nadia suddenly reached out to the Duke and tried to take the piece from him. Nadia reminded him that it was a walnut cake. But Henry didn't understand what the matter was. He knew what the cake was made of, since they were on his estate, and he couldn't help but know the ingredients of the dishes served. Nadia told Genrich that she thought he might not have enough time to check. As a child, Henry once ate a walnut and fell ill, so they were strictly forbidden at the Boldvan estate. Nadia stood and watched in horror as Heinrich ate the cake. Heinrich didn't understand why Nadia was looking at him like that. He already thought that she had some problems. Nadia didn't understand whether everything was really okay with him. Nadia said that she was just nervous and apologized to Heinrich for her rudeness. Henry looked at Nadia and asked her how she found out about this. Nadia pretended that she didn't understand what he was talking about. Heinrich Hode said that for some time, he really could not eat walnuts. It was a closely guarded secret, even in the mansion, known only to a few people. He asked Nadia who told her about it. Heinrich said there was something else he wanted to ask about, like the vein of magic stones she had recently found. Genrich Kode said that information about her was known only to his wife. He was wondering if Nadia had learned about this simply by studying history. Henry realized that Nadia was not going to answer, at least not yet. Henry asked Nadia not to forget that he was watching her. Then Vivian came up to them. She was glad that she had finally found Nadia. Nadia was glad to see Vivian, because she had appeared at such a timely moment, and now she would be able to avoid further conversation with Henry. Nadia apologized to Heinrich once again for her rudeness and left. Nadia stood and analyzed the situation. She realized that she needed to pretend that she didn't know anything. She didn't understand why she grabbed his wrist in the first place. Now, Heinrich began to treat the mine with suspicion, and from now on, Nadia had to be more careful. Vivian turned the other way and noticed the artist there. Vivian said that this man was completely out of his mind. Nadia did not understand what she was talking about. Vivian said that this man was Viscount Lewis, a swindler in the art world, who had already been caught selling counterfeit paintings to aristocrats, but was released due to lack of evidence. Nadia didn't understand why this man was let go so easily. Vivian said that he insisted that he didn't know the paintings were fake when he sold them. The Viscount even managed to escape during the trial, and a reward was offered for his capture, but he managed to wriggle out of it by appealing to pity. Nadia couldn't understand how the Viscount had the nerve to cheat people right there in the Boldvan estate. Here, Nadia heard the Viscount telling the girls that as long as they owned this painting, even the Boldvan family would treat them with respect. He also said that his paintings were not something that could be bought for money. He sold them only to those who really understood something about art. Nadia couldn't stand it any longer and approached the man. She apologized for interrupting the conversation and asked to let her look at the painting. Nadia was intrigued. She wondered what could compete with the name Boldvan. The Viscount looked at Nadia and told her that he did not want to seem rude, but the painting was quite expensive. And it's not the kind of picture that a young lady like her can afford. Vivian had a plan. She told Nadia that she shouldn't throw money around like that just because she had recently become rich. Nadia told Vivian that it was just one painting. Vivian said that she didn't understand what was good about buying something like that. Nadia said that everything was fine because it was extra money that she received thanks to the magic stone mine. The Viscount said that he usually doesn't show it, but since Nadia is so persistent, he is ready to make an exception. He realized that Nadia had suddenly become rich, and he believed that there was nothing better than deceiving the nouveau riche. The Viscount called Nadia to follow him and asked him not to be too surprised by what he had. Nadia didn't understand whether he really decided to mention this particular work out of everything. Nadia told the Viscount that she had not expected this at all. She thought that this painting had been lost many years ago. Nadia said that she was buying this painting. The Viscount was shocked because she hadn't even seen it. Nadia said that since it was a rare painting, she should buy it quickly. Nadia asked if they could sign the contract right now. The Viscount said that they could certainly do it and ran off to get the contract. While the Viscount went to get the contract, Nadia managed to meet with the Duchess. Nadia asked the Duchess if she would accept her sincere gift. The Duchess said she was looking forward to seeing the work Lady Hesse would present to her. The Viscount did not understand what the Duchess was talking about. He had never heard anything like it. The Viscount reminded Nadia that they hadn't even signed the contract yet, and she was already planning to give this painting away. Nadia said that she was just very happy that she would be acquiring the Emperor's Bird. The Duchess couldn't understand whether Nadia really wanted to give her the painting The Emperor's Bird from Pamela. Nadia told the Duchess that this was exactly the case. When she heard about how the Viscount had managed to get her with difficulty, she immediately decided to buy her. The Viscount understood that the agreement was written in his favor, and if he showed it to the Duchess, he would definitely be caught. The Viscount told Nadia that the painting was already hers, and the contract could wait. But Vivian realized that he simply wanted to take his words back and snatch the contract from him. The Duchess approached the Viscount and asked him where and how he had obtained the job he had been assured of many years ago. The Viscount said that he was able to do this thanks to an acquaintance, and asked the Duchess why she was asking him about this. The Duchess said there had been a recent increase in art fraud schemes, targeting both aristocrats and commoners. The Duchess asked the Viscount if he was connected with them. The Viscount told the Duchess that it must be just a terrible joke, since he was not one of those kind of swindlers. The Viscount said he didn't even dare think about doing such a thing in Boldvon territory. The Duchess couldn't understand how the Viscount dared to think about this. She ordered the guards to immediately take this swindler away. The Viscount resisted. He did not understand how the Duchess could call him a fraud without evidence. The Duchess, as soon as she learned that the Viscount was selling the Emperor's Bird, realized that it was a lie. After all, the real painting he is talking about was in the estate of the Duchy of Boldvon from the very beginning. The Viscount was perplexed. He did not understand how they could keep a painting that no one could find. Nadia sank to the ground and began to cry. She did not understand how the Viscount dared to deceive her. The other guests noticed this and immediately realized that the Viscount had been caught in a fraud, and that the statements he had made at the last trial had also been lies. And of all places, he decided to sell the painting at the Boldvon's reception, which was a huge disgrace for an aristocrat. Nadia was glad that her performance worked and people took notice. The Duchess felt sorry that Nadia had to become involved in such an unpleasant incident. Then Henry approached them. He had heard that one of the aristocrats had caused a disturbance, and that was why he had come. Nadia did not want to meet Henry again. The Duchess told her son that Nadia had been deceived by Viscount Louis. Henry understood that the matter was serious. He was glad that everything was resolved well. Henry promised to sort out the rest himself. He asked his mother to return and rest. He decided to see Nadia off himself. Henry thanked Nadia for preventing the Viscount from being deceived, because if it weren't for her, nothing would have come to light. Henry was surprised, because such an intelligent man was almost deceived. Nadia said that her mistake was that she believed the Viscount's words without properly checking the painting. Although, even if she saw it in person, she would not be able to tell whether it was genuine or not. Seeing the painting, she would simply think about what a beautiful painting of lovers it is. Heinrich told Nadia that he would thank her properly later. He said that he would look forward to an invitation to the Hesse estate. Nadia said that she would definitely invite him to the estate as soon as the opportunity arose and got into the carriage. Vivian wondered what Nadia would do if the Duchess didn't have this painting. Nadia smiled and told Vivian that she knew the Duchess had this painting. Nadia could not have failed to know this, since it was she who found this painting 10 years ago. Nadia was sorry that she couldn't find out why Henry didn't want to remarry, but she was sure he had a reason. Now Nadia wanted Viscount Louis to regret what he had done and pay in full for his crimes. The butler noticed that Henry was in a good mood and was interested in whether he had achieved his goal. Henry said that he had received even more than he had expected. Henry told the butler that Lady Hesse knew about his walnut allergy. The butler was shocked, because this is classified information even within the estate. But Heinrich hasn't had this allergy for a long time, and it seems Nadia doesn't know about it. Moreover, Nadia knew that the Emperor's bird, which was kept secret, was already in the Duchy of Boldvan. Henry was curious how Nadia knew about the mine that only Ravenna knew about, and whether it was just a coincidence. But now Henry was sure that there was something between Nadia and Ravenna that he didn't know about. The butler asked Heinrich whether it wouldn't be better to simply ask Nadia how she knew this. Henry said that even if not today, he would have such an opportunity quite soon. Barony of Hesse, Nadia sat and read a letter from the duchy. It was written about a swindler they encountered at a reception. The Viscount was about to pay compensation. The Duke wrote that if Nadia was worried about this, now she could rest easy. Vivian was shocked that Henry not only reported the result, but was also worried about her feelings. Vivian noticed that Nadia was smiling as if she had received a love letter. Vivian thought that it might be possible that Henry and Nadia would get back together. Nadia told Vivian that this would never happen. Vivian realized that Nadia clearly did not see Henry as a man, but she felt that there was something more to it. The next day, Nadia came to the mine. After the mine, Nadia was going to go to the market to sell some of the magic stones she had mined. Nadia asked her father what if she used the money to buy lamps with a magic stone and put them in the mine to make working safer. The Baron thought it was a great idea, and Nadia also told her father that now that there would be more opportunities to interact with other territories, he needed to think about his reputation. The Duke was at a loss when they suddenly came into such a large amount of money, but Nadia was much more reliable to him. He was very glad that she appeared among them. Nadia became wary. In her past life, all she had to do was speak, and her father would look at her with disdain. But the Baron, even though she is not their biological daughter, always respects her words and decisions. Nadia received compensation. They also made money on the magic stones, so this month they could afford to treat their mother. Nadia wanted to continue working so hard that her family would never have problems again. Nadia noticed that someone's carriage was standing in the yard, but they weren't expecting guests today. Nadia noticed that Baron Varden came out of the carriage. He was glad to see Nadia. He never thought that that small and thin girl would grow up so beautiful. The Baron came out and asked Varden what brought him. The Baron called Varden to follow him to have a cup of tea and talk about everything. Nadia was not particularly happy to see Baron Verdun again. Then Vivian came up to her and asked who the man was. Nadia said that it was Baron Verdun. Her father considered him an old friend. Although Verdun himself does not share this opinion, he came to them only when he needed money and asked them to invest in his business. And Baron Hesse was so kind-hearted that he could not refuse, and therefore they lost quite large sums. Vivian was angry with Baron Verdun. She was ready to kick him out right now. Nadia said that they couldn't do that because it would have a bad effect on their reputation, and their father's pride would be hurt. Nadia suggested simply observing the situation for now. Nadia gave Vivian something and asked her to put it in the living room where Baron Hesse and Baron Verdun were sitting. It was a listening device. She once gave Conrad a magic stone from the mine, and he did this to her. Baron Verdun was very surprised that the magic stones were found right on the lands of Hesse. He didn't understand how the goddess of fortune could smile on carefree people like Baron Hesse, but not on those who worked tirelessly. Verdun said that it was clear that a person was not destined to die so easily. Baron Hesse did not understand what he was talking about. Then Verdun asked the Baron if he wanted to increase his fortune. Verdun said that he was currently working on something, and he was going to tell him about it as if he were his special friend. In the distant northern region, if you go deep into the mountains there, you can find a fruit that, despite the terrible winds and cold, grows and bears fruit. It was a rare plant that grows only in the mountains. and they said it was a panacea for all diseases. Verdun told Hess that if he could get this plant, it could help the Baroness. The Baron did not understand whether if he got this fruit, his wife's suffering would stop. At this time, Nadia was sitting in the room and eavesdropping on the conversation. Nadia didn't know whether Baron Verdun was lying or not, but she knew that he always hid his true intentions. Nadia believed that starting a business with a fruit that he had never even seen, let alone tasted, was completely absurd. Baron Hess thanked his friend for such an offer. Nadia did not understand whether her father would give in this time too. Nadia decided that this wouldn't do and decided to intervene. But suddenly, she heard her father refuse Verdun's offer. Not long before this day, Nadia sat and couldn't understand whether her father really wanted to learn to refuse people. The Baron said that yes, he knew in his head that he should refuse, but he simply could not bring himself to say it. The Baron understood that during all this time, because of his character, they had suffered a lot. Nadia realized that her father was worried about the events of the past. Nadia told her father that it was most likely because he was trying to say something he had never said, so he was tense and the words weren't coming out easily. Nadia decided to show her father one working piece of equipment. First, he needed to start sipping his tea slowly to calm down a little. He had to keep his back straight and think about what he wanted to say. Then, he had to look at his interlocutor with a soft smile, thank him for the offer and refuse. Thanks to that conversation, the Baron learned to refuse offers that did not interest him. Verdun did not understand why Hess refused. He explained that every business he had invested in, following him, had ended in failure. Baron Hess realized that running a business was not his business. Verdun said that running a business was a matter of luck, and this time everything could turn out differently. But Hess did not want to continue this conversation. Nadia heard the screams and ran to Vivian to make sure her father was safe. Vivian told Nadia that the Baron was completely safe. Verdun stood before the Baron and begged him to invest in his business. He had already invested a huge amount of money in these fruits, but they were all stolen by bandits before they even arrived in the country. Verdun promised that the business would pay for itself and that he would return the money threefold. Verdun believed that they would succeed, since Hess was lucky with a vein of magic stones. The Baron approached Verdun and asked him to raise his head. He was happy. He believed that Hess would help him, but the Baron told Verdun that he didn't think he could help him with anything because he didn't have that kind of money. Verdun didn't understand how this could happen because he should have had money from selling the magic stones, but the Baron said that it wasn't his money. The Baron explained that his daughter had found the stones, and they treated the proceeds as everyone's achievement, so the money belonged to everyone in the Hess estate. Verdun told the Baron that it was his money, since he was the owner of the estate. The Baron believed that if he used this money to help Verdun, it would look like he was trying to appear to be a good person. He also couldn't always rely on his daughter. He also wanted to become a reliable person. Verdun did not understand whether the opinion of his daughter was more important to the Baron than his old friend. Verdun could not understand this, especially since Nadia was not his own child. Verdun couldn't understand whether the Baron wasn't ashamed, as an aristocrat, since he had to marry Nadia off, so that at least in this way she could repay him for the fact that the Hess family had raised her for all these many years. Verdun asked the Baron whether he would take his proposal more seriously if he found a suitable groom for Nadia. He knew a 70-year-old count. Verdun thought that this was a good option. The count did not have long to live, so Verdun believed that now was the perfect time. The Baron got angry at Verdun. He grabbed a book from the shelf and threw it at him. He didn't understand whether Verdun was really proposing that he marry this notorious womanizer. The Baron told Verdun that he regretted every time he called him a friend and threw him out the door. Nadia thought that Verdun would not leave on his own and already wanted to send Vivian there. But the Baron not only refused him, but also managed to throw him out. Nadia entered the living room. Her father asked her how long she had been standing there. Nadia said that she came down as soon as she heard screams. The Baron asked his daughter not to worry about what Verdun said. The Baron told Nadia that she was the daughter of the Hess family, and they would never force her to do anything she didn't want. She just had to wait a little. The Baron promised to get down to business any minute. It seemed to Nadia that this was the second time she had heard something like this. In a past life, Henry promised her that he would grow up quickly and make sure she never had to work again. This one sentence alone gave Nadia so much strength. Nadia told her father that she had wanted to tell him something for a long time. It seemed to Nadia that her father had already fully mastered his responsibilities. She thought that now he could manage the affairs of the mine independently. The Baron believed that he could not cope, but Nadia said that he would succeed. Nadia wanted to focus on earning money for her mother's medicine while her father looked after the mine. Then Vivian ran into the room. Nadia was surprised, because she didn't even see her leave. Vivian told Nadia that there was urgent matter. Vivian told Nadia that Duke Boldvin was waiting for her outside. Heinrich was about to reveal Nadia Hess's true identity right then and there. Soon, Nadia and Heinrich were sitting in the living room drinking tea. Henry looked tense. Nadia thought he didn't like the tea. Nadia thought that he wouldn't like the overly strong smell, so she brewed a milder variety. Heinrich told Nadia that he felt like she knew a lot about him. Nadia told Henry that he was the Duke of the North, and there was not a single aristocrat who did not know about him. Henry said that the location of the vein with magical stones and his allergy to nuts are not things that everyone knows about. And these are not the only suspicious moments, he asked Nadia when she saw that painting. Nadia told Heinrich that she didn't quite understand what he was talking about. Nadia told Heinrich that she had never seen the Emperor's bird, and he asked her not to bother herself with lies. Henry said that when people hear this name, they think that the picture depicts a bird. However, Nadia already knew that it depicted lovers. Henry said that the only people who saw this painting were he and his mother, and his wife Ravenna also saw this picture. Heinrich told Nadia that no matter what excuse she came up with, she would have to tell him something convincing. Henry asked Nadia how she learned something that only Ravenna knew about. He wondered what her connection was with Ravenna. Nadia told Heinrich that she was glad that he was putting so much pressure on her, and that she had no other choice. She was ready to tell him everything. Nadia said the truth was that she was close to the Duchess. Nadia said that before she was adopted by the Hess family, she was almost kidnapped by a stranger. Ravenna happened to be passing by and saved her, and since then, she visited her from time to time and told her various stories about the world. Nadia said that then Ravenna suddenly stopped communicating and visiting her, and when Nadia tracked her down, she learned of her death too late. Nadia apologized to the Duke for offending him. She said that it was out of pure motives, because she just wanted to help. Henry relaxed and said that Ravenna really did love to tell stories. Henry said he now understood the big picture. But from now on, Henry asked Nadia to stop following in his wife's footsteps and imitate her. After all, Ravenna is not the kind of person Nadia could become by simply copying him. At this point, Henry finished his conversation and was about to leave. Nadia sat and nothing had happened. 10 years had already passed, and he still remembered her in the past with such pain and sadness in his eyes. Nadia suddenly told Henry that the Duchess had died through no fault of his own. Henry stopped and asked Nadia to repeat what she had just said. Nadia said it was just an accident that no one foresaw. Nadia asked Heinrich to leave everything in the past and live in the present, looking to the future. Nadia told Henry that no one had the right to blame him for this, and the Duchess herself would certainly like to see him happy. Henry put a sword to Nadia and said that she knew nothing and did not dare to speak like that. Heinrich told Nadia that she had become so immersed in the role of his wife that she had begun to treat him like her. Henry said that no one could ever take Ravenna's place. Henry approached the door and asked Nadia not to cross the line again. Finally, Nadia told Heinrich that she didn't want him to be hurt again. Henry was surprised that he continued to see Ravenna in this woman. When it turned out that he had just been fooled by a cheap copy, he realized that it had been a waste of time. But he was haunted by the words that Nadia had said to him before he left. He thought it was funny. He didn't understand whether those words really comforted him. Nadia told Conrad that Heinrich came to see her, and his actions and facial expression made her remember again that day she tried to leave in the past. Nadia wanted to know about that incident with the carriage. She was sure that it was not just an accident. Conrad told Nadia that she was very perceptive. Nadia was sure that Conrad had already conducted an investigation. She asked him to tell her everything. Conrad said that 2 different types of soil were found on the wheels of the carriage, one of which was unnaturally liquid, different from the road, as if someone had left it there on purpose, and the wheel itself was a little loose. All this was too much to be considered a simple coincidence. Nadia realized that she had died according to someone's plan. Nadia understood that if this was done intentionally, then the target was not Ravenna, and the role of the Duchess of Boldvon, which is why she was eliminated. Nadia knew that if there was anyone for whom the Duchess was like a beam in the eye, it was Count Crimson. The Crimson family held lands to the southwest of the Duchy of Boldvan and had long been loyal vassals of Boldvan, their connections even close enough to warrant marriage. If it weren't for Ravenna, Henry would certainly have become engaged to Count Crimson's daughter when he grew up. Conrad said that it was quite possible, since they had recently raised the issue of marriage between their families again. Nadia asked Conrad to begin an investigation into Count Crimson. Nadia didn't understand whether she would be able to ease her feeling of guilt if she found the culprit. Nadia asked Henry to wait a little longer. She couldn't be with him again as Ravenna, but she could protect his happiness from the side until the very end. In the morning, Nadia was sitting in her office and working on paperwork. Suddenly, she heard a noise outside and became curious about what was going on there. She looked out the window and asked what they were doing. The man said that the residents of the estate had banded together and saved up some money, and now they were going to furnish her new office. Nadia was confused. The man said that they would make her office magnificent, so she needed to be patient a little. Here, Nadia was told that the inhabitants of the estate were wonderful people. They wanted to give Nadia a small gift, so in the morning they all gathered together. It was the Baroness. Nadia didn't understand whether she could really go out like this already. The woman said that there would be no harm from a short walk. Besides, thanks to the medicine that Nadia gave her, she felt much better. The Baroness told Nadia that in addition, she needed to talk to her about something. The Baroness asked Nadia what she thought about trying to make her debut in high society this year. Nadia was surprised. The Baroness told Nadia that thanks to her, their estates earned enough money. So this is the first thing the Baroness thought about. Once a year, the imperial family holds a ball where all the young ladies gather to make their debut. As a rule, the debutantes are no more than 20 years old. Nadia reminded the Baroness that she was already 20 and had absolutely no interest in social life. The Baroness said that this had nothing to do with it. The Baroness said that her family's fortunes were poor, so she was only able to make her debut at the age of 21. The slightly younger girls looked down on her and called her a poor woman without honor or even youth. The Baroness never blamed poverty for everything, but that day she felt very humiliated and lonely. The Baroness did not want her daughter to go through the same pain. Nadia understood her mother's feelings, but she could not afford the luxury of a debut. Nadia believed that now that their income had increased, they needed to expand their business and find more deposits, build new roads, and create recreation areas. The Baroness looked at Nadia and asked her to put her work aside for at least a little while. The Baroness told Nadia that the Hesse estate was not something she should take care of alone. From now on, Nadia could trust her father a little more. The man who was afraid of his work now enjoyed it and became much more reliable. The Baroness believed that Nadia had already fully fulfilled her role, and now it was the turn of the people of the estate. The Baroness told her daughter that she could not bear all the responsibility herself. Then someone came into the room and told Nadia that she was the daughter of a baron, and it would be great to attend a debutante ball, and at 20 years old, it was the perfect time to do it. He asked her not to worry about the mines, because as soon as the new workers arrived, they would teach them everything. Vivian told Nadia that everything was actually going perfectly. The boss had just contacted her, and most likely, the daughter of Count Crimson will also be present at the ball. Nadia realized that Vivian was talking about the lady with whom Henry's marriage was discussed. Nadia agreed to attend the debutante ball, but in that case, she would have to stay in the capital for some time. She asked to contact her immediately if something happened, and she would return immediately. Before leaving, the Baron approached his daughter and asked her if it was really okay for just the two of them to travel so far. He asked her to take more assistance with her, but Nadia said that Vivian alone would be enough for her. Then another carriage drove up to the estate, and Viscount O'Delly got out of it, Conrad undercover. Nadia told her father that since they would be going with Viscount O'Delly, he had nothing to worry about. The Viscount promised the Baron to be responsible for Nadia's safety until they reached the capital. Approaching the carriage, Nadia noticed the light that was falling from the horses. Nadia asked Vivian what it was, but Vivian didn't see anything. Nadia didn't understand whether Conrad had taken any special protective measures. The residents of the estate wished Nadia a successful journey. They wanted her to find a wonderful groom there. After this, the carriages set off for the capital. Nadia told Conrad that Vivian had told her that Count Crimson's daughter would also be attending the debutante ball. Nadia asked Conrad if the Count himself would arrive in the capital. Conrad said that this was indeed the case. Nadia was glad. With her current personality, it would be difficult for her to meet the Count. At first, she wanted to get closer to his daughter. Nadia asked Conrad if he had finished his investigation regarding Lady Crimson. Conrad said that the investigation had been completed recently. Conrad reminded Nadia that she had said that she no longer wanted to live as Lady Ravenna. To do this, she first needed to cut off all ties with Henry. But even now, more than anyone else, she was worried about his condition and safety. Conrad told Nadia that Heinrich was no longer a child to be looked after. Nadia told Conrad that she was doing this not only for Heinrich, but also for herself. Nadia made a promise to herself as soon as she saw this child. When Ravenna was ill, Henry, being so young, looked after her. People were surprised when they learned that the Duke had a wife. They thought that Ravenna was lucky because she was the daughter of an unknown county, but was able to take the place of the Duchess. Among the Count's families was the Crimson House, but their daughter was still a baby, and people thought that the duchy simply needed someone to fill this role. They thought that as soon as the young Duke grew up, he would divorce Ravenna. But they thought that this one would especially torment him before that. The previous Duke had not lived to see his son come of age, and Henry was no good at that age. People thought they should have chosen a better bride for him. Ravenna woke up. Henry immediately ran to her and asked if everything was okay with her. Ravenna asked the Duke where she was. Henry said that she was in his bedroom. He asked Ravenna to stay in bed. She couldn't get up yet. She had passed out from exhaustion. Henry told Ravenna that she needed to rest now. Ravenna looked at Henry and asked him not to behave like that again. She explained that even if they were husband and wife, they couldn't appear to be close in public. After all, someone might think that she was running the duchy instead of him, and then people would start looking down on Henry. They might start calling him a useless duke hiding behind his wife's skirt. Henry said that he believed that if a wife was sick, then the husband should be there. He believed that this was the essence of marriage. Ravenna told Henry that to maintain his authority, they needed to keep their distance. After this, Ravenna headed to her room. Henry did not stop Ravenna, he only wished her good night. When she left, he was saddened. He understood that, as a duke, he could not allow himself to be disrespected. But he was sure that one day everyone would recognize the undeniable nature of his authority. He did not understand whether he could then be openly near her. The servants were talking about the fact that the Duke himself was the reason for the disappearance of things from the mansion. The girl did not understand why the Duke did this. But another maid answered her that the reason was quite simple. The young Duke didn't want his mistress to know about this money. Henry never told Ravenna that he needed money. She didn't understand whether he didn't want her to know about it. Ravenna approached the maids and ordered one of them to go and tell the Duke that she was waiting for him on the terrace. Henry came to her. Ravenna apologized for having so suddenly torn him away from his work. Henry said that everything was fine, and that finding time for her was his responsibility as a husband. Ravenna asked the Duke if it was possible that he recently suddenly needed a large sum of money. Ravenna said she heard that he had recently sold a few things to make money. Ravenna asked him to tell her the truth. She said that she could help him if he suddenly had little money. Henry was pleased to see how concerned Ravenna was about him. Ravenna said that there was some truth in this, but noticed that his face had turned red and asked if he was ill. Henry said that he was fine and that she shouldn't worry, but it was more important for him to find out where Ravenna heard it. Henry said that the talk about him secretly saving money was just a false rumor. Ravenna did not understand whether Henry had deliberately spread it. Henry said that this was so, since he was still too young. There would be no questions. Ravenna became interested in why he needed this legend. Henry reminded Ravenna that she herself had said that they should not be too close in public, so he wondered who these people might be. Those who could judge his authority outside the estate were certainly receiving information from the inside. That's why Henry told a couple of stories to the most suspicious maids, so that if rumors spread, he could definitely identify their source. Ravenna realized that Henry had planned everything in advance so that they could separate the people they trusted from those they could not trust. Ravenna told the Duke that she saw that he was planning a purge, but Ravenna didn't understand why it was worth going so far. Henry told Ravenna that he was doing this only for her. He wanted to become a husband she could be proud of. He was ready to stop anyone who would belittle or offend Ravenna. Henry wanted to do everything in his power to ensure that Ravenna no longer had to endure their gazes. Ravenna thanked Henry. She said that she also thought that he had thought everything through very well. However, there were a couple of nuances. Not all the maids would fall for his bait so easily, so it would not be possible to clean out all the traitors. And once the truth is revealed, the rest will be cautious, making it even more difficult to catch them. Ravenna noticed that Henry's face changed. She did not understand whether his words had hurt her. Ravenna said that the traitors, of course, needed to be weeded out, because in the end, it would only improve the situation in the duchy. Ravenna told Henry that he had done well and deserved a reward. Ravenna asked him if there was anything he would like to receive from her. Henry said there was something. He would like Ravenna to teach him to dance. Ravenna was surprised and asked him if she could find out the reason. Henry said that he was still very young, so he would not be able to be with her at the upcoming debut. But he really wanted her to perform her first dance with him. Ravenna fulfilled Henry's wish. His hand was softer and smaller than hers, and he himself felt more like a younger brother than a husband. But still, he was the first one who extended his hand to her with such warmth. And then, for the first time, she decided to build a good relationship with someone. She believed that if they broke up, they could still remain friends. Nadia told Conrad that she couldn't just abandon this child. She promised herself that she would make Henry happy. She asked Conrad if he would help her, and he replied that of course he would. This was just the beginning. Nadia was sure that sooner or later, she would reveal the cause of her death. And then Henry will be able to free himself from the feeling of guilt that has tormented him for so long. The girl stood on the roof of the building and admired how huge and lively the capital was. The girl sat and watched the races. She was wondering which horse would win this time. She thought the Golden Rose would win this time. But her interlocutor, R, said he thought another horse would win this race. Then the girl suggested to the young man that they argue about which of them would be right. Vivian looked at Conrad and asked if this was Uria Crimson. He replied that yes, Uria looked the same as in the portrait they managed to obtain. In life, Uria looked like an energetic young lady. She lived in luxury and gambled, and recently there was a rumor about her affair with a young groom. Nadia didn't understand whether Crimson was really that kind of person, and Conrad said that it was unclear whether it was true or not, but she didn't have the best reputation. Nadia was sure that all these rumors would definitely surface during the negotiations about marriage with the Duke. She was interested in where Uria most often appeared. And is she really as problematic as they say? She wanted to meet her and see everything with her own eyes. Since Uria arrived in the capital, she has hardly left the hippodrome. However, Nadia could not understand who was constantly next to her. Nadia heard that Lady Crimson had many male friends, which meant that this guy could be her lover. Then a woman suddenly approached Nadia and asked her which horse she would bet on. Nadia said that she wasn't going to bet, but Conrad said that since they had already arrived, they could place a bet. She knew that if she could bet on the winner, it would be easier to get closer to Lady Crimson. Suddenly, Nadia saw that same strange glow again. Nadia pointed out the horse to the woman and said that she was betting on it. The woman said that the horse's name was Big Crow. The woman asked Nadia if she was sure, and if she wanted to change her choice before it was too late. White Crow had little experience in racing and was also small in build, so her chances of winning were extremely slim. Vivian also suggested that Nadia bet on another horse, for example, a bright gray one, but Nadia decided to stop her choice on the Big Crow. She said that the Big Crow would be the winner today. The guests placed their bets, and the races began. The two horses immediately took the lead, with Steelscale running behind. So far, the Golden Rose, the one Lady Crimson had bet on, was in the lead. The horses began to approach the first turn. Meanwhile, the Big Crow was still at the start. Vivian asked Nadia not to be upset about the wrong choice, since it was her first time at the races. Uria was pleased. Her horse was still running ahead of everyone. She was confident of her victory. Nadia didn't understand what was going on, because initially the glow looked different. But suddenly, the Big Crow glowed with that bright light again and began to rush forward. Lady Crimson was in shock. She was not prepared for this, because her horse was about to be overtaken. The Big Crow was confidently pulling ahead. It was already in fourth place and was approaching the finish line. Nadia realized that the glow hadn't been her imagination at all. Steelscales was trying to maintain its position, but was gradually slowing down. In the end, Big Crow overtook Steelscale, but Golden Rose still remained in the lead. They galloped with all their might. Golden Rose continued to hold her position, but Big Crow continued to push her out. The Big Crow began to pick up speed. and began to run on par with the Golden Rose. Lady Crimson was still rooting for Golden Rose, asking her to win. Meanwhile, Golden Rose had picked up speed, and now she and Big Crow were riding closely together. The battle was fierce, only 100 meters remained. And now, finally, they crossed the finish line. The horse that overtook all the contenders and won the long-awaited victory turned out to be Big Crow. Vivian was delighted because the horse Nadia had chosen actually won. Nadia realized that it was time for a response. Nadia started to catch up with Yuri. The girl asked her to stop. Yuria asked Nadia to spend a little time with her and talk to her. Nadia turned to Yuria and asked what was going on. Yuria asked Nadia how she knew that Big Crow would win. Yuria asked Nadia if she really was a magician. Nadia did not understand why she was suddenly asking her about such a thing. Yuria said that she asked Ara, and he said that Big Crow is a horse with mana. Here Ar caught up with Yuri. He reminded Yuri that she couldn't run away alone. He was scared because he thought that he had lost her. Ar was saddened that Yuria constantly made him remind her about safety. Yuria said that she was going to return quickly, but Ar didn't believe her. He thought that if he hadn't found Yuria, she would have gotten lost again. Here Ar turned his attention to Nadia. He asked her not to pay attention to what Yuria told her and apologized for this performance. He introduced himself to Nadia. The young man's full name was Arcus Flan. He was from the Flan clan. Nadia realized that a man from the Flan clan was walking with Yuria. Ar told Yuria that it was time for them to go. Yuria didn't want to leave. She and Nadia still had something to discuss. Ar asked Yuria why she didn't invite Nadia to the Crimson Mansion then. Yuria realized that this was a great idea and invited Nadia to her place, where she could show her. Nadia smiled at Yuria and said that she would definitely come. Nadia didn't expect her plan to progress so quickly. Nadia told Vivian that since their business was finished, they could return home. Conrad walked away from the girls, when suddenly a man started catching up with him. He told Conrad that they had received a message from a squad that was looking for that gang of criminals. Conrad was extremely displeased because Duke Boldvon was involved in this again. Henry sat in his office and studied the documents he had received. The butler entered his office and said that he had brought him a new cure for headaches. The doctor said it should work better than the last one. The butler also said that Count Sillin had arrived, and he asked Heinrich whether to send the Count back. But Henry said that the time had come and asked the butler to take the Count to his office. Count Sillin was sitting in the Duke's office. He told Heinrich that he hadn't seen him for a long time, so he decided to drop by. The Count said he was consumed with pain, and he had learned that a reception had recently been held in Boldvin Garden. He did not understand how Henry could forget about the Sillin family. Henry wanted to talk about this, but the Count interrupted him. The man said he understood. Rivenya was no longer with them, so the Duke must have felt uncomfortable crossing paths with someone from her family. The Count said he was genuinely interested in the news that Henry had restored the garden that Rivenya had cared for. The Count said that he and his wife had discussed everything carefully and made a decision. They decided to make a small garden on their estate. Henry did not understand why. The Count said that it was all because Rivenya really liked flowers. The Count said that he would like to plant the roses that Rivenya loved, but he understood that a garden could not have only flowers. They needed to plant at least a couple of trees and lay out paths to make it comfortable to walk. A fountain would also look great, and if you drink tea while remembering Rivenya, then you should set up tables. Seelan said that first of all, in order for the garden to be in order, it was necessary to find a gardener. The Count said that now, unfortunately, they did not have enough money to build a garden. The Duke was quite prepared for this, so he was not at all surprised. Henry understood that the Count needed money, but he found it funny that the Count had not allowed the garden to be built while Rivenya was still alive. Then he referred to the high cost, and now that he needed money, he began to mention Rivenya. The Count said that in those days there were circumstances that prevented him from taking proper care of his daughter. The Count began to play on her pity, reminding her that his child had married a young husband and devoted 8 whole years to him. The Count believed that even after Rivenya's death, Henry had no interest in her. Henry could not stand this and asked the butler to allocate funds for the construction of a garden in the county of Sillin. The Count immediately beamed with happiness and began to thank Heinrich. Silenus told Henry that his daughter, being in heaven, would be very grateful to him. At this point, the Count decided to leave, but Henry detained him. There was one thing he wanted to tell him. Henry told the Count that Rivenya loved not roses at all, but Gypsophila. As the Count left the estate, the butler told Henry that as long as he turned a blind eye to such things, the Count's greed would only grow. The butler believed that in the future, the Count would continue to ask for money under various pretexts. Henry understood this, but he could do nothing about it. No matter what the Count was, he remained the father of his wife. After all, without him, Henry would never have met Ravenna. This is the only thing he could do for Ravenna now. Now, something else was more important to Henry. He was interested in what was going on with the issue he had ordered to be dealt with. The butler told Henry that he was right. Conrad had started to be active again. He even went so far as to use a fake identity, Viscount O'Delly. Henry looked at the documents and asked the butler if there was anything else strange. The butler said that Conrad had recently arrived in the capital and had since often been seen with Lady Hesse. The butler said that Conrad had probably already received information about this, so they should expect a response. Henry sent his butler to rest and sat down at the table to think about the situation. Conrad was the only and most faithful assistant of his wife, Ravenna. Because Conrad followed only Ravenna, Henry didn't even really see his face. After Ravenna's death, Conrad disappeared without a trace, and Henry did not understand why he suddenly returned. Heinrich was even more curious about why Conrad was now next to Nadia Hesse. Suddenly, the window in the office opened and a man entered. Henry looked at the man and asked him who he was and how he got there. The man took off his cloak. It was Conrad. He asked Henry if he was the one who was so desperately trying to find him. Henry immediately realized that it was that same Conrad standing before him. Conrad asked Henry what was on his mind and why he began to interfere in his affairs and force him to appear to him personally. Henry told Conrad that when he disappeared after his wife's death, he didn't really care. He believed that a lost animal had only two paths, eternal wandering or following its master. But then Conrad appeared again, and this alarmed Henry. He knew that Conrad was increasing his capital, but Henry did not understand whether he suddenly needed a large sum of money, or maybe it had something to do with Ravenna's death. Conrad pushed Henry's hand away and said that he was not obliged to answer his questions, since his mistress was Lady Ravenna. Henry was angry with Conrad because he was clearly not telling him something. After the accident, Henry continued to search for any clue related to Ravenna's death, but he never found the culprit. There was no ray of hope when countless investigations left Henry with nothing but pain and torment. Then he began to think that it really was an accident, but recently, strange things started happening. Someone appeared who knew a 100-year-old story that everyone had forgotten, and information kept only in the Boldvon family. And now Conrad, who lived like a dead man, showed his face, and at the center of it all was Nadia Hesse. Heinrich wanted to know what Conrad and Nadia were up to and what they knew. Conrad told Henry that his answer remained the same. He had nothing to say. Conrad told Henry that his delusions had nothing to do with him, but he wanted to give him advice. Conrad asked Henry to let go of the past, because he could do nothing, and only in this way would he pay tribute to Ravenna. But Henry didn't understand how Conrad could say such a thing. Henry wasn't the type to do that just like that. Henry was walking down the corridor and was stopped by the butler, who was wondering where the gentleman was heading at such a late hour. Heinrich asked Alice where Nadia Hesse was now, and he replied that she had gone to the capital to prepare for her debut. Henry asked Alice to immediately prepare everything necessary for departure to the capital. Conrad's reaction was as Henry had expected. Now he could only hold on to one person. For Nadia Hesse, he needed to meet her as soon as possible. Vivian was delighted. The tour of the capital was fun, and she was also able to see many beautiful dresses. Vivian and Nadia wanted to enjoy everything to the fullest while they were in the capital. Nadia would have liked Conrad to join them too. She didn't understand where he went, leaving only a note. Vivian didn't understand why they had to go through all this trouble when she could just sneak into the Crimson estate. Nadia said that although Count Crimson was the prime suspect, they couldn't say for sure yet. Nadia believed that they needed solid evidence, so they should first examine everything carefully. And if they're lucky, they might even learn some unexpected details. At the races, Lady Crimson made a good first impression on Nadia and Vivian. Nadia believed that if Count Crimson turned out to be innocent, then the marriage of Yuria and Heinrich was practically a foregone conclusion. Then another girl will stand next to Henry. Then someone called Nadia. She became wary. The voice seemed familiar to her. Nadia turned towards the man and saw that there was no one there. Nadia was scared, but suddenly this voice told her that he was a little lower. Nadia looked at the ground and noticed that there was a young guy lying there. It was R. Nadia looked at Ara and asked if he was okay. She gave him her hand to help him up. R smiled and said that he was fine and that he was already used to falling. Arcus Flan, junior lord of the Duchy of Flan and cousin of Yuria Crimson. Until Nadia found out about the relationship between Yuri and Arcus, she thought that they were dating. R said that he came to meet her, since Yuria was not ready yet. He thanked Nadia for coming. Nadia also thanked them for the invitation. She noticed that R was more open than she thought. Nadia asked Ara if he, like Yuri, was also interested in horse racing. R said that this was not entirely true, and said that he had simply followed Yuri that day. Nadia asked him how he managed to immediately choose the horse that would win. R said that it was all because he saw mana shining inside the big crow. R explained that this was the source of power. If mana was awakened, the likelihood of manifesting power beyond its own limits would increase. That's why R chose it, mana. It is a natural force that all living things have. Mana was always present, moving with their life force. However, only a small number of talented people could sense or awaken mana. R would be glad if Nadia could see mana. Then they would discuss much more. Nadia said that she saw something similar. Nadia said she saw Big Crow's heart sparkle like a jewel. Nadia wasn't sure it was mana, and she had no way to prove it. R suddenly jumped up to Nadia and told her that she had seen everything correctly. R asked Nadia if she had ever thought about starting to study magic. Nadia was confused. She wasn't sure she would have a place to study magic. R told Nadia that she didn't have to worry about that because he could teach her. R said that when it came to magic, he was 100% confident in himself. There was not a single person in the Empire who knew more about it than him. Nadia became interested, and even thought that after this, her life would become even easier. Nadia thanked Ara, but declined the offer, as it would be difficult for her to study now. Now Nadia had to prepare for her upcoming debut, and besides that, she still had a lot to do. R asked Nadia to be sure to contact him if she found free time. Then Yuria ran up to them. She greeted Nadia and asked how long they had been waiting for her. Yuria started to choke. Nadia got scared. She apologized to Nadia and said that it took longer to get ready than expected. R screamed. He reminded Yuria that he asked her to be careful because she could get hurt. Yuria didn't understand why R was making such a noise. After all, she had only just gone for a short run. R told the girls that he needed to get something, so he would have to leave for a while. Nadia had a familiar feeling. Yuria called Nadia to show her the house. Yuria didn't know where to start, so she suggested they start by inspecting the stables. Yuria said that she recently moved Big Raven into the property. Soon Nadia and Yuria were watching the horses. Nadia, judging by the way the Big Raven was frolicking, thought that he was happy to live here. Yuria smiled and said that she really hoped so. Nadia asked Yuria if she really liked horse racing, and Yuria said that she really did. Yuria said it was exciting to watch the intense racing, but Yuri also liked to simply observe the lives of horses. Watching them frolic, it seemed to her that she, too, was gaining freedom. Yuria admitted that she is even a little envious of horses. Yuria also said that horses are very loving animals. When she was sad, the horses would come to her and rub against her head. Nadia suddenly told Yuria that she heard that there was talk about her marriage to Duke Boldvan. Nadia told Yuria that when she gets married, she will be far away from horses. Nadia told Yuria that she thought this would make her sad. Yuria told Nadia that she didn't really want to marry the Duke. Yuria understood that this might sound like a childish whim, but she wanted a marriage in which there would at least be mutual respect. Yuria said that, unfortunately, this was impossible with Duke Boldvan. Nadia didn't understand why Yuri had this idea, since his lordship would respect the one who became his mate, but Yuri said that this was impossible. Yuria said that Duke Boldvan still cannot forget the late Duchess. Nadia didn't understand what Yuri meant. She told me that she had once visited Boldvan Manor and had been filled with excitement and anticipation before she crossed the threshold. But then, seeing a random room she was passing by, it seemed to her that this trepidation froze in her veins like ice. This room was the room of the late Duchess. Everything inside was spotless, without a speck of dust, and it felt like someone was still using the room. Even the servants prepared clean water and cleaned the bedroom as if the mistress of the house were still alive. This room did not look like one that would belong to a dead person. Yuria said that it was obvious whose order it was. 10 years had passed since the death of the Duchess, and usually, if something is kept, It is a portrait. Yuri said that in his lordship's heart, there was only room for his deceased wife. Nadia didn't understand why it all went so far. Nadia didn't understand whether it was possible that her death had been tormenting that child all this time. Yuria said that her father said that this was even for the best, since it would definitely prevent a mistress from appearing, but Yuria herself considered this strange. Yuria suddenly asked Nadia if she was okay. Nadia looked pale. Nadia said that she was just shivering from the cold. Yuria apologized to Nadia and invited her inside to have some tea. Nadia did not understand at all what Heinrich was thinking about and what he had felt all these 10 years. Yuria was incredibly happy that her debut would take place with Nadia. Before, she had been very worried because she didn't know anyone. Yuria wasn't sure she could handle it. She was constantly. Nadia asked her not to worry and said that she would handle it perfectly. Yuria told Nadia that there was a wonderful coffee shop in the city center and suggested that Nadia go there, and she didn't mind. Nadia said that she also recently found a nice pastry shop. Then someone called Yuri. The girl got scared. Then Yuria turned around and called the man her father. Nadia realized that Count Crimson himself had approached them. The man looked at Yuria and asked her if she had really been in the stable again. The man was also curious about the person standing next to his daughter. Nadia greeted the Count and introduced herself to him. Count Crimson still didn't understand who Nadia was. He had never heard her last name before. Nadia explained that her family owns a small village with a population of less than 100 people. Crimson asked his daughter how many times he told her that she should only communicate with people from her circle. Yuria didn't understand how her father could say such things. The man ordered Yuri to shut up and not waste time. He didn't understand when his daughter would finally realize her destiny. He called Yuria to follow him. She could not contradict her father, so she had to leave Nadia. Vivian was angry. She did not understand who this man was, because he, being a count, was saying such things. Nadia said that Crimson was not just a count, and if he intermarried with the Boldvan family, he could become a marquise. Vivian was also shocked by Yuri, because she behaved so friendly with Nadia, and then followed the count without saying a word. Nadia told Vivian that this was definitely not her sincere intention. Nadia believed that perhaps Yuria was fighting all alone. Nadia understood that breaking free from the family's control was never an easy task. Nadia told Vivian that they had finished their business and could return to the estate. Nadia decided to find another way to get closer to the Count. But then R caught up with Nadia and asked her to stop. Yuri told him everything. He asked Nadia for forgiveness, because she was invited as a guest, and they treated her like that. Nadia said that everything was fine. Nadia asked Ara to tell Yuria not to worry. R took an envelope out of his pocket and asked Nadia to accept it. It was an invitation. R explained that they would soon be holding a social reception. R told Nadia that he would be very glad if she visited him. Nadia thought that Flan and Crimson were at home. They were relatives and had close relationships, so getting closer to R was a good option. Nadia thanked Ara for the invitation and said that she would definitely come. R was delighted and thanked Nadia, but R was worried that she would refuse him. R said that he would look forward to that day and said goodbye to Nadia. Nadia was pleased. The problem she had just been worried about was solved. Suddenly, Vivian told Nadia that she thought the young lord had feelings for her. Vivian told Nadia that R looked confused when he talked to her, but Nadia thought it was because of the manna. Nadia told Vivian that she needed a new dress for the reception and asked Vivian for a favor. Vivian told Nadia that she didn't have to worry about it. Vivian turned to Nadia and asked if she had known from the very beginning that R was a magician. Nadia replied that yes, and since he was close to Yuri, Nadia found out a little about him. Vivian was curious. Usually mages were eager to make a name for themselves, but she hadn't heard anything about him. R did not seem to Nadia to be a person interested in power. She understood that trouble would be inevitable if someone found out about his peculiarities. Nadia thought about Conrad, and he immediately appeared in the doorway. He said that he had just returned and asked Nadia to tell him if she needed anything. Nadia said that she didn't call him for orders. She was wondering where he had been all this time. Nadia thought that Conrad did not want to talk about it and said that he was not obliged to report if it was personal. But Conrad suddenly said that he had met with the Duke of Boldvan. Conrad said that it seemed like Henry had been following him. Conrad told Nadia that Heinrich not only interfered with the search for the key, but also deliberately lured it out. Nadia told Conrad that there was no need for him to take the bait. Nadia realized that Conrad had a reason to meet with Heinrich. Conrad told Nadia that his priority was her happiness. Nadia told Conrad that she did not want to return to her old life, but at the same time, she could not leave Duke Boldvan. Nadia couldn't ignore this child. Only by finding the killer could she help Henry throw off his burden. Therefore, for Nadia's freedom, Conrad decided that the only option was to help Heinrich free himself from the shackles of the past and face reality. Henry still clung to that time and could not let go, but Ravenna would never return to the living. Conrad realized his mistake and apologized to Nadia. Due to his impatience, he had acted rashly. Nadia asked Conrad to raise his head. She told Conrad that he was right. Nadia also needed these words to bring her down to earth. Nadia was full of doubts, but she did not want to become Riven again. But she still wanted Heinrich to be happy. Nadia understood that anyone would find this strange, but she was used to it. In her past life, everyone considered her strange. Nadia understood that it was beyond her powers. She would not be able to make him happy. But Nadia believed that if the past wouldn't let him go, then it was also her fault. That's why Nadia decided to do it one last time, after which she was ready to let go of everything. Let go of the longing for those times and the selfish desire to see his smile again. Nadia told Conrad that as soon as they revealed the truth about the carriage incident, she would let him go. But now Nadia still needed his help. She asked Conrad to lend her some of his strength. Conrad told Nadia that if this was the path to her happiness, he would follow her anywhere. Vivian approached Nadia and asked her if she was sure she would be okay. Nadia said that everything would be fine, because she had finally stepped on the right path. Yuria sat in the room and thought about what had happened. She thought Lady Hess was disappointed in her. After all, Nadia bought wonderful desserts, but in return received only a disgusting attitude. Here, Yuria remembered that R said that he invited Nadia to the reception. Yuria wanted to apologize to Nadia there. Yuria couldn't stop thinking about it. She was afraid that Nadia wouldn't forgive her. Then a servant came to her and said that Duke Boldvan had arrived at the estate. Henry and Yuria were sitting at the table. Henry apologized to her for such an unexpected visit. Yuria told Genrich that everything was fine and asked him what brought him to her. Henry asked Yuria if Lady Hess was with her. Yuria said that she had just recently left the estate. Henry was upset because he arrived as soon as he heard that Nadia was at the Crimson Estate. But in the end, he let her slip right from under his nose. Yuria became curious why Henry was looking for Lady Hess. She had never seen him like this before. Then it dawned on Yuri. She didn't understand whether Heinrich was really interested in Nadia Hess. She was terribly curious, but she couldn't ask directly. It seemed rude to her. Yuria told Henry that Lady Hess might attend the Flan family reception. Henry turned to Yuria and asked her if she could help him. A couple of days passed, and the day of the reception at the estate of the Duchy of Flan arrived. As expected, the reception was truly magnificent. Everything was on a completely different level. It was worthy of one of the two ducal houses of the empire. People were sure that the Crimsons would attend this reception, as they had always had close ties to the Flan family. Vivian and Nadia had already arrived. Vivian had managed to meet some man and take something from him. The man Vivian contacted was sent by Conrad. Vivian received a message from her boss. It was the report that Nadia asked her to make. Duke Crimson's suspicious movements were confirmed. He was a member of the Marquis Salon's salon. At first glance, these were ordinary literary evenings. But digging deeper, one could discover a secret meeting. The Duke's pseudonym was Laban, and it was obvious that since he was using it, he was doing something that could not be done under his real name. Vivian handed Nadia an envelope containing the current names of the meeting participants. Only high-ranking officials and people chosen by them had the right to attend the meeting, so it is unknown what happens there. Nadia didn't know whether she should try to get an invitation directly or take advantage of the weakness of someone on the list. Nadia ordered Vivian to find out more information about the participants, to find what connects them, and then they will be able to guess the nature of the meetings. Now Vivian needed to continue monitoring Crimson, and Nadia was going to establish contact with someone from the list. Nadia stood up and was about to return to the reception. However, Vivian stopped her. She told Nadia that she needed to rest sometimes. Vivian told Nadia that she would take care of the Count, so she had nothing to worry about. Vivian asked Nadia to show everyone, once and for all, that she is the most beautiful in this world. Nadia was announced at the reception. People heard her name for the first time. They were interested. They heard about the barony, but did not know that the Baron had a daughter. Nadia went out into the hall. First, she decided to greet Mr. Flan. Nadia wandered around the hall, but could not find Flan. Then she heard people whispering. Some of them understood why this name seemed so familiar to them. They realized that the Hess were the family that had recently become rich from magic stones. However, they believed that even if the Hess had tasted money, they had no place in such a society. People didn't understand who Hess knew once they got to the reception. They were sure that Hess had bribed people to get to this reception. People couldn't understand whether Hess had decided that if they dressed up, they could get away with it. Here, R approached Nadia from behind. Nadia was a little scared, since she did not hear his steps. R, in front of everyone, thanked Nadia for coming. He asked if he had missed the chance to become her partner. R said that he would very much like to be one, because she was his guest. Nadia said that he was just in time, because she had just arrived. R told Nadia that there were several people he would like to introduce her to and asked him to go with him. Nadia agreed, and a few seconds later, they went out onto the balcony. Nadia was confused. Because there was no one on the balcony, she asked Ara where the people to whom he wanted to introduce her were. R told Nadia that he had actually lied to her. R said that he felt uncomfortable being in a place where there were a lot of people because he had to keep an eye on everything around him. He told Nadia that this place was much better suited for spending time with her. Nadia stood silently in place, not understanding anything. Then she smiled and told Aru that he was right. Nadia and R stood and admired the view from the balcony. R suddenly asked Nadia for forgiveness. He felt guilty because if he had come earlier, Nadia would not have had to endure such treatment. Aru wanted to leave Nadia with only pleasant memories, since he personally invited her to the reception. Nadia told Aru that everything was fine and she was already used to it. Aru was surprised. Nadia knew it sounded strange. She told Aru that she really was okay. Nadia had been allowed more than she deserved, so she was prepared for such comments. She had always heard such things as a Ravenian. At times she felt offended. Sometimes what was said hurt her, but the angrier she got, the more pitiful she looked. So Nadia decided it was better to put her emotions aside and ignore everyone than to give them something that could be used against her. R was impressed. Nadia was so young, but seemed much more mature than her peers. Nadia told Aru that she hears such words very often. But still, Anu didn't like hearing from Nadia that everything was fine with her. Even after visiting the Crimson Estate, Nadia told Aru that she was fine. Aru knew little about Nadia, but her words seemed false to him. R asked Nadia to come closer to him. He wanted to show her something. R showed Nadia one of his magical abilities. He told her that if she trained, she could do the same. The first requirement for becoming a mage is the ability to control mana, which is why magic is only available to a select few. But with curses, everything is different, as opposed to magic, which can only be used by those who are prepared. Curses only required that they be pronounced with deep hatred, and that was their danger. They didn't require any special skills, so anyone could use them. Sometimes there are completely bad reasons, and sometimes they accidentally gnaw into someone's soul. It all ends with the curses returning to their owner. R said that someone who is accustomed to harmful words begins to mistakenly accept them as truth to some extent. R asked Nadia why she didn't believe in herself a little more. R told Nadia that the lady he knew was truly beautiful. Nadia thought about Ara's words. She still didn't know what self-confidence was and where to find it. Nadia thanked Ara. Somehow she actually felt inspired. R said that now it was time for them to go and really enjoy the reception. R and Nadia had a good time, drinking wine and talking about interesting topics. Suddenly she felt very hot. She sat down to rest. Nadia thought that it was because she had not drunk for a long time. It was getting late, but the number of people in the mansion still didn't decrease. Nadia realized that it was really hard for her to keep up with the young people. Here Nadia noticed some guys who were standing not far from her. Nadia thought that these were people from that list. Nadia noticed that those guys turned around and started to leave. She decided that she couldn't just let them go, so she followed them. The guys were heading towards the exit and discussing the fact that the day of justice was just around the corner. Fate has tested them many times over the past 10 years, but they thought that everything had gone well, and it was unlikely that anyone would believe in the existence of the swan. Nadia didn't understand anything. She was wondering what they were planning. Meanwhile, the guys had already approached the turn. Nadia understood that if she lost them, she would not be able to find out their purpose. Nadia wanted to quietly catch up with them, but accidentally stumbled. The guys heard the sound and turned around. They realized that there had been someone in the corridor all this time. Nadia was scared. She understood that if she was caught, she would get into trouble. Nadia decided to find a place and hide. Henry was also in that corridor. He grabbed Nadia. Since it was dark there, Nadia did not recognize him at once and began to get nervous. Henry asked her to calm down. Now they needed to get out of this situation. Nadia didn't understand what Henry was doing in the Duchy of Flan. She wanted to find out from him, but Henry said that they would discuss this later. Now they needed to be silent and not make unnecessary sounds. Meanwhile, the guys began to examine the corridor to find who was eavesdropping on their conversation. Even though they weren't saying anything important, it would still be problematic if someone were eavesdropping on their conversation. They wanted to sort things out because there was a possibility of trouble. They reached the corner where the sound came from and where Heinrich and Nadia stood. But suddenly, a sound came from the opposite end of the corridor. They thought that the man had run away there, so without checking the corner, they ran to another part of the corridor. Heinrich told Nadia that everything was fine now, and they could leave while his subordinate distracted them. Nadia thanked Heinrich for his help and asked what he was doing there. Nadia told Heinrich that she didn't notice him arriving, and he first suggested moving. They went out into the garden. Henry said that this place would be best for conversation. Nadia turned to Heinrich and asked if he would answer her question. Henry said that he came to the duchy because he wanted to meet her. Henry told Nadia that she and his wife had a lot in common, which made him suspicious. It seemed strange to him that every time he followed his wife's trail, he came across Nadia. Henry told Nadia that he was sure that she definitely knew something related to Ravenna, but was hiding it from him. He told Nadia that it didn't matter to him why she was doing this, since there was a hint of Ravenna's trail, and he was ready to do everything to find it. And if necessary, even at the expense of Nadia's safety. Nadia asked Heinrich if he was telling her this because he had changed his mind. There were many controversial points, taking into account what had just happened. There was a lot of strangeness in Nadia's behavior. However, that day, it seemed to Heinrich that Nadia's voice sounded as if she was in more pain than he was, and her eyes, which immediately brought to mind Ravenna, gave Henry no peace. Henry told Nadia that this was the last chance he could give her. He promised to believe her at least this time if she answered his question. He asked Nadia to make the right choice at least this time. Nadia understood that in reality, she didn't even have the opportunity to refuse. Nadia told Heinrich that she agreed to tell him everything. Eventually, Nadia told Henry that she, like Conrad, were secret followers of Riven. Based on suspicious evidence at the scene, they determined that Ravenna's death had been staged. Henry realized that Nadia was following Crimson because he was the prime suspect. Henry was still interested in many things, and he was glad that he at least understood the big picture. Nadia also told Genrich about the Alon Salon. Henry said it was no wonder Conrad had difficulty approaching him, as the salon was under the protection of the imperial family. At first glance, this is an ordinary salon, but in reality, aristocrats gather there and commit dishonest deeds in the name of the imperial family. Of course, the imperial family kept an eye on them. Henry did not know whether they had anything to do with Ravenna's death. He thought they would have to look into it further to find out for sure. Henry was noticed by some ladies, who were surprised that Duke Boldvon had arrived at this reception. They immediately came up to greet him. They did not remember how many years had passed since they saw him at such an event. Count Ruben kept spreading rumors that the Duke's health was failing, but now the girls realized that it was a lie. But the girls were stunned by the fact that Henry was with Lady Hess in such a secluded place. Nadia wanted to explain everything to the girls, but Heinrich stopped her. Heinrich asked Nadia if she agreed that their goals coincided. Henry told Nadia that he would be very grateful to her if she helped him a little. Nadia didn't understand what he was talking about or what he was going to do. Henry said that it was indeed too late. Heinrich admitted to Nadia that he had completely lost track of time with her. He asked Nadia if it was time for them to go back. Nadia was confused. She didn't understand what he was doing. The girls were also surprised. They apologized for their tactlessness and said that they could no longer interfere with their time together. They wished them a good time and left. Nadia tried to stop them and explain everything, but they didn't pay attention to her. Nadia didn't understand why Henry did this, because the girls could have misunderstood everything. Henry said that this was what he had been counting on. He explained that the Duke's marriage was also of interest to the imperial family. For them, Henry's marriage to Crimson's daughter was a predetermined fact. Henry said that if a scandal were to break out, it would be an unpleasant surprise for those who had determined it. Nadia didn't understand whether Henry was planning to provoke the Count's accomplices hiding in the palace. Nadia was worried, because if she made a mistake and insulted the imperial family, Henry would be in danger. And if things continue like this, then she herself will be connected to him. Nadia was worried that she might start to doubt her earlier decision to end things this time. Henry noticed that Nadia was worried and told her that this situation could still be resolved. However, if Nadia provided assistance, Henry promised to reward her. And it was not only about finances, but also about status. Nadia told Heinrich that she would help him just like that, and that she didn't need any status or privileges. Henry understood that this was dangerous for Nadia, but she was the only one he could turn to for help. After all, she was the only person who shared the image of Ravenna that he remembered. Nadia looked at Heinrich and couldn't understand why he had such a sad look. Nadia told Heinrich that she would cooperate with him because she was obliged to Ravenna. Heinrich was surprised. In return, Nadia wanted to ask Heinrich something. She wondered if his wounds would be able to heal at least a little if the cause of the Duchess's death was revealed. Henry said he didn't know, but he was absolutely sure that if he were to meet her again, he would stand before her with his head held high. Nadia understood Heinrich and thanked him for his answer. Nadia told Henry that she had no idea he had any connections to the Flan family, as there had been no talk about their families. Heinrich told Nadia that they had no connections, and Nadia was surprised. Henry said he was able to attend the reception, accompanied by Lady Crimson. Nadia realized that Henry had arrived as Lady Crimson's partner. Genrich said that, apparently, if a scandal about them flares up, then Yuria will also be pleased. Genrich said that when he asked Yuria for help and explained everything to her, she looked happy. Henry turned to Nadia and asked her if she wanted to amplify the rumors. Soon Nadia and Heinrich entered the hall together. All attention fell on them. People were surprised to see them together. Nadia felt uncomfortable. She felt eyes on her from all sides. Then, R ran up to her and said that he had been looking for her everywhere because Nadia had said that she had felt ill and had gone out to get some fresh air. R wanted to ask about her well-being, but saw Heinrich. Heinrich greeted R, and R did not remember how much time had passed since he had last seen him. Henry told Nadia that it was a great honor for him to accompany her. He said that it was time for him to go. Soon Henry left, leaving Nadia and Ara alone. R began to ask Nadia how she was feeling and wanted to offer her something. But Nadia didn't hear him. She was busy with something else. R turned in the direction Nadia was looking and noticed Heinrich there, who was approaching some lady. R looked at Nadia again with sadness in his eyes and understood everything. R suggested that Nadia return. He wanted to accompany her to the carriage. Nadia agreed, and she and R headed towards the exit. Duke Crimson kept his eyes on Nadia the whole time. After all, it is she who is the swan heart that is destined for them. As expected, rumors about Nadia and Genrich spread very quickly. The girls sat and discussed the fact that Duke Boldvan had recently begun to appear in society. Their mistress was smart, but lately she had often been absent-minded, and this worried them. The girls discussed how Heinrich had come to see his beloved, and there were rumors that he was on good terms with Baron Hesse's daughter. Nadia was engaged in the extraction of magical stones, and the Duke was fascinated by her. Some even heard that an engagement had taken place. As soon as Nadia entered, two girls attacked her. They were curious whether the rumors were true. Nadia stood there and didn't know what to do or what to say. Soon Nadia met with Genrich. She understood that all this was to deceive others. However, if they want the scandal to reach the imperial family, then they need to lie around together as often as possible. But Nadia asked him not to go that far. All this time, Henry sent Nadia luxurious gifts, showed attention to her in front of other people, and did much more. Nadia believed that if things continued like this, Henry would never marry. Henry said it was only a small thing, so as not to tarnish the name of the duchy, and also thanks to this, a small effect appeared. Heinrich reminded Nadia that he had told her earlier that his marriage to Yuri was predetermined. But after the Flan family's reception, rumors quickly spread, and the trust of Count Crimson's supporters was undermined. The nobles who were watching what was happening began to draw a line at him one after another. Henry believed that if they continued to maintain the current atmosphere, they would be able to discover new clues. Among other things, they could learn about the swan and the day of justice. Henry asked Nadia to devote a little more time to the upcoming debut. There was a high probability that the Imperial Palace would show interest in her, so she needed to prepare well. Nadia was depressed by the mere thought of this. Henry understood that perhaps the very man would appear at the debutante ball. Nadia needed to prepare well. He decided to start with the dress. Since Nadia had red hair, a neutral color would suit her best, and there was no need for a lot of accessories. He believed that the emphasis should be placed only on the eyes. Nadia didn't understand why Heinrich was looking at her like that. Heinrich said that everything was fine, and told Nadia that she could contact him if she needed anything, whether it's something Nadia wants or something she desires. Nadia remembered a moment from her past life, when, as Ravenna, she asked Heinrich what reward he wanted to receive. Nadia suddenly told Heinrich that she wanted to get a dance from him. She asked Henry to teach her to dance. Heinrich was surprised and asked Nadia again. Nadia said that she didn't need anything in particular. She just wanted to be with him, like in the old days. Nadia realized that she had said too much. She didn't know how to get out of it now. Nadia tried to explain everything, but she forgot herself and gave in to her feelings, so she didn't understand it. Nadia said that she had taken dance lessons, but she had no practical experience, and she was afraid that she might make a mistake and cause trouble for Heinrich. Nadia apologized to the Duke and asked him to forget what she said. Henry, to Nadia's surprise, said that he agreed. He said that he just had some free time, and they could devote it to practice. He suggested that they go and find a free space that would suit them. Nadia stood there and didn't understand what was going on and how they had come to this. Henry brought her to some hall. He thought that it would suit them perfectly. Nadia and Genrich began to practice. At first, Nadia felt awkward, but then the tension eased. Nadia couldn't get used to the fact that the child, who was waist-high to her as a child, was now so much taller than her that she had to lift her head up. The palm that was once smaller and softer became hard and large enough to cover her palm. Nadia was delighted that her little young groom had grown into such a wonderful adult man. Heinrich noticed that Nadia began to lag half a step behind him. Ravenna had the same habit, and Henry found it suspicious. Nadia told him that she had learned a lot from his wife, but Henry did not understand whether she had also adopted this habit from Ravenna. Henry realized that he had to stop thinking about it. He couldn't give in to useless thoughts. At their last dance, Henry was a little boy trying to hide his embarrassment. Ravenna was kind to him, and Henry believed that her kindness came quietly and unnoticed in the form of an understanding of his immaturity. But even so, Henry tried to look her in the eyes. When their eyes met, Ravenna smiled softly, as if to say that everything was fine. Heinrich stopped and told Nadia that he thought she shouldn't worry at this stage. Although Nadia said she had no practical experience, in fact, she danced beautifully, Henry asked Nadia to let him know if she needed anything else. He was ready to help her. Before leaving, Henry told Nadia that she had nothing to worry about, because he would be on her side in any case. Nadia thanked the Duke and he left. She stood and tried to come to her senses. Meanwhile, Yuria was chatting with R. They were discussing rumors. Yuria heard that there was a rumor that Nadia and Genrich were dating. She was interested in whether it was true. Yuria hoped that this was true, because she played a significant role in this. Yuria believed that this would certainly help her when she made peace with Nadia. R sat and was silent. He thought about all this. Nadia and Vivian came to a jewelry store. Nadia stood and chose something. She wanted to buy a gift for Henry, as he had given her a lot of things during this time. Recently, Henry sent Nadia a very expensive dress. It was custom-made, so she couldn't even return it. The consultant suggested that Nadia choose something that would match the person's image. The consultant asked Nadia what color she imagined when she thought about that person. Nadia thought and tried to remember her feelings when she saw Henry. A couple of minutes later, Nadia pointed out the brooch to the consultant and said that she was buying it. She told Nadia that it was a wonderful choice. The stone symbolized an unchanging heart, so it would be a special gift. Nadia was glad that she found a suitable gift, but she spent a large sum of money on it. This brooch was incredibly expensive. Nadia was lucky that she had enough money, but after the purchase, she had nothing left. Suddenly, Nadia heard someone shouting not far from her. It was Yuria. She was screaming and asking them to leave her alone. Yuria argued with R. She told him that she would go alone today and asked him not to follow her. R tried to stop Yuria, but he couldn't. And in the end, she left him. Here R turned towards Nadia and noticed her. Nadia smiled and waved to Aru. She was glad to see them. Aru was ashamed because he showed Nadia his shameful side. He thought that Nadia was shocked. Nadia told Aru that everything was fine and asked him to calm down. Nadia was interested to know how her quarrel with Yuri had started, but she didn't want to seem rude. R said that he made Yuria feel depressed. Earlier, a street performance was taking place in the square. Yuria, attracted by the singing, tried to enter the crowd. When R tried to stop her, he accidentally raised his voice and it ended up in a fight. Nadia asked Ara if there was a reason why he stopped Yuria. Nadia believed that the young duke would never have done such a thing without a special reason. R said that in fact, Yuria has a very weak body, and if she overexerts herself, she easily gets sick. Because of this, Yuria often finds herself bedridden for long periods of time. R said that it was actually his fault. When Yuria was little, she had no one she could call a friend. Under the close supervision of Count Crimson, Yuria's relationships were strictly limited. That's why Yuria often followed R around. In such an environment, he was the only one Yuria could calmly approach. Yuria saw Ara as her friend and treated him with warmth. But then Ara was irritated by her company, so he coldly rejected her kindness. R ran and hid from Yuria. He desperately ignored this girl. One rainy day, R was on edge and said a few offensive words to Yuri about something. It wasn't a fight. It was nothing more than his anger at her. Even knowing this, he could not contain his pride and let his rage burst out. Yuria followed R to talk and make peace with him. The wooden bridge, soaked by the rain, could not support Yuri and collapsed at that very moment. A strong current quickly swallowed Yuria, and from that day on, the girl suffered from illness for a long time. R blamed himself for this. He believed that if he had not turned away from her then, this would not have happened. From that day on, R became very anxious. He was afraid that what he did to Yuria actually made her suffer. Nadia sat and silently listened to Ara all this time. She sympathized with him. R smiled and asked Nadia for forgiveness. He said that it was an uncomfortable topic and suggested that Nadia forget about it. But Nadia suddenly told Aru that there was no need to forget anything and that she understood him perfectly. Nadia knew firsthand that the more valuable a person is, the more cautious you become, without even knowing how the other suffers from it. And in the end, you can't help but do it because it's necessary. Nadia asked Ara not to blame himself. She believed that Yuri knew for sure that his intentions were driven by anxiety. Nadia said that when you have a conflict with someone you love, it's enough to simply share your true feelings and make peace. Nadia said that while they were alive, everything could be fixed, even if it seemed like it was too late. Nadia asked Ara if it would be nice to get rid of some of this anxiety. Nadia told Aru that she could help him if he needed a reason to approach Yuria. R relaxed and lay down on Nadia's shoulder. She was surprised. R straightened up and told Nadia that he felt a moment of relief and forgot himself. R thanked Nadia for calming him down. He believed that Nadia was truly a good person. Nadia reminded Aru that not long before this, he had also tried to calm her down and had succeeded. Nadia told Aru that he was also a very good person. R told Nadia that if she ever needed his help, she could contact him. He promised Nadia that he would try to help as much as he could, no matter what she asked for. Nadia smiled and thanked Ara. She was pleased to hear that. Yuria walked and thought about what had happened. It seemed to her that she had been too cruel. She was angry and lost her patience because he did not let her do what she wanted. Yuria understood that R was worried about her. Yuria decided that she needed to go back and apologize to him. Yuria wandered the streets looking for Ara, and eventually she found him. But she didn't understand what he was doing with Nadia. Yuria was afraid that Nadia was still angry with her because of that incident at her estate. Yuria decided that this was her chance. She had not seen Nadia since that day, so she had no opportunity to apologize. They couldn't meet at Ara's party. Yuria looked for her all evening, but couldn't find her. Yuria believed that today, God had finally given her the perfect chance to apologize. Yuria stood and thought about where to start and what to say to Nadia. To begin with, she wanted to start with the arrival, because they had not seen each other for a long time. Then she wanted to say that she made a mistake that day, and that she was sorry, and also to say that she did not agree with her father's ideas. Then Yuria wanted to invite Nadia to be friends. Yuria plucked up her courage and headed towards Nadia and Ara. But then, suddenly, from behind Yuri, someone called out very loudly. Yuria turned around and saw the girl, who said that she hadn't expected to meet her. She thought that Yuria had also come shopping. The girl asked Yuria if she was alone and began looking around to find her companion. Soon the girl noticed a bench on the other side where Nadia and R were sitting. The girl immediately recognized Nadia and asked Yuria if she was the girl who seduced Duke Boldvan. The girl thought that Nadia was now flirting with the young Duke of Flan. She considered Nadia greedy. The girl wanted to interact with Yuria. She asked Yuria if she wanted to go and put Nadia in her place. Yuria approached Lady Headington and asked her why she was insulting Lady Hess. Yuria said that R and Lady Hess were already acquainted. Yuria asked the girl not to disgrace Nadia with such vulgar words. Yuria said that she was worried about them. She said that she would not let it go if she started to belittle the people she cared about again. Lady Headington was angry and told Yuria that she only wanted to help her. Then Nadia and R approached Yuria and Lady Headington. Yuria was perplexed. She didn't understand from what point Nadia had been standing there. Yuria was afraid that Nadia would think that she had slandered her. In fact, Nadia stood and looked at Yuri. She was, of course, interested in what happened, but she did not blame Yuri. Yuria thought that Nadia thought that she said all this and was upset. Yuria was desperate. Her plan had gone awry, and she was getting into even more trouble. Nadia looked at Yuri and said that she wanted to talk about what happened, but did not have time to say a word. Yuria screamed that there had been a misunderstanding. She said that she didn't think so, and had never discussed Nadia at all. Nadia asked Yuri to calm down. She explained that this was not what she wanted to say. Nadia wanted to thank Yuri. Yuria told Nadia that even though she hadn't spent much time with her, she was sure that Nadia was a good person. Yuria told Nadia that when they first met, she wanted to get closer to her. Yuria was upset. Everything didn't go according to plan from the very beginning. She hated looking so pathetic. Yuria, with tears in her eyes, told Nadia that she just wanted to be friends with her. Yuria said she regretted every day after leaving Nadia back then. Yuria confessed to Nadia that she wanted to sincerely apologize to her and ask her to become her friend. Yuria cried even harder because she thought that she had completely ruined everything today. Nadia approached Yuria and said that she hadn't ruined anything and everything was fine. Nadia told Yuria that this was the first time she had encountered such a situation, so she didn't quite know how to react. Nadia didn't know what to answer, but she was sure of one thing. Nadia told Yuria that she was grateful to her. She was glad that Yuria was angry with that girl because of her and because she wanted to be friends with her. Nadia told Yuria that she felt the same way and wanted to be friends with her too. Yuria thanked Nadia and promised her that she would be a good friend. R joined their conversation and said that on such a wonderful day, they needed to create even more pleasant memories. R suggested going for a walk in honor of their friendship. Yuria didn't understand when R managed to become friends with Nadia. R told Yuria that her friend was his friend too. Nadia, R, and Yuria were walking around the capital and looking for a place to sit. Soon R, Yuria, and Nadia were sitting in the central coffee shop that R had noticed. In the evening, Yuria, tired from the whole day, returned home and fell onto the bed. She was happy that she had made peace with Nadia and even went shopping with her, like a real friend. Even though everything didn't go according to plan, Yuria was glad that everything worked out for her. Then a servant came to Yuria and informed her that her father was waiting for her. Yuria walked down the corridor, thinking that her father had called her because he had heard rumors about Nadia and Genrik. Yuria understood that her father would be furious because he tried in every way to marry her to Heinrich. The girl was scared and didn't really want to go to her father. Yuria stood outside her father's office and thought about what she should tell him. Yuria remembered that she had promised Nadia that no matter what happened, if she was insulted, she would not remain silent. After all, she finally started communicating with someone other than Ara. Yuria collected her thoughts, plucked up her courage, and entered her father's office. Father asked Yuria if she knew that a very interesting rumor had recently started circulating about Duke Boldvan. Yuria realized that she was right when she thought that her father called her because of this. Count Crimson walked up to his daughter and raised his hand. Yuria closed her eyes. She thought he was going to hit her, but the Count simply asked his daughter not to worry about it. The Count told his daughter that he understood that it would not be easy, but he believed that this was just a temporary noise, and this place belonged to her. The Count told Yuria that nothing had really changed. Yuria didn't understand anything. She saw that her father wasn't angry with her, but she didn't understand what he meant. Yuria was very scared, but she made up her mind and told her father that this was not her place, and she would not marry the Duke. The Count stood and understood how his daughter could say such a thing to him. Yuria said that she is rooting for the relationship between Genrik and Nadia, but even if they don't get married, her choice will not change. The Count got angry and ordered his daughter to stop talking this nonsense, because she didn't even have a choice. Yuria said that she no longer wanted to do anything that would make her feel ashamed, even though she would have to go against her father's will. Yuria said that for this reason, she would definitely not marry Duke Boldvan. As expected, Count Crimson did hit his daughter. The Count told Yuria that he had made a mistake in placing any expectations on her. The Count considered his daughter to be a useless thing, but he was not going to give up. Even though the problem had arisen, he still had a chance. Yuria was perplexed. She did not understand what her father was going to do. The Count said that if the instrument is broken, the method is quite simple. He just needed to find himself a new instrument. Here was the heart of the empire, entry to which was prohibited without the consent of the emperor. When spring was in full bloom, the debutante ball began, an event attended by young girls who had come of age. They officially revealed their names to high society, so all the noble people of the empire gathered there. Hundreds of different dresses were sewn for this day. Invitations to this ball were sent throughout the empire. For some, this ball was the only chance to greet the imperial family in person. In a place where only perfection is allowed, years of effort have finally borne fruit. The Empress raised her hand. It was a greeting on her part. This single movement determined the honor of an entire family. The Emperor and Empress stood up, and the Emperor congratulated the girls on reaching adulthood. He wanted the words of this day to make their lives only brighter. He blessed their new journey. The Emperor told the descendants of the empire that they could now enjoy their performance with all their hearts. Nadia's parents were proud of her, because just yesterday she was still a baby, and today she was already greeting Her Majesty the Empress. Nadia thought that her parents were tired from the long trip, and she was grateful to them for coming. But they told Nadia that everything was fine, and that in the end, it was their responsibility as parents. Nadia's mother was grateful to her daughter for the invitation. She considered Nadia the most charming in the world. R and Yuria were also at the ball. R was proud of Yuria, but the girl herself was very afraid of making a mistake. R said that her curtsy was perfect, but something was bothering Ara. He had noticed the abrasion on Yuria's face a long time ago and wanted to know what had happened. Yuria said she was fine, as she had accidentally scratched herself while fixing her makeup. Yuria was worried. She didn't understand whether it was really that noticeable. R said that everything was fine, and the abrasion wasn't particularly visible. Yuria began to look around and noticed that her father had not come to this event. She was haunted by his words spoken the day before. She was also incredibly upset that her father called her a useless thing. Yuria hoped that her father said this out of emotion and that he didn't really think so. Meanwhile, the ball was in full swing. People were having fun and dancing. Nadia wandered around the hall looking for Heinrich, but she couldn't find him. She was worried because Heinrich was not one to be late. Then someone called Nadia, and she immediately recognized the woman by her voice. Nadia bowed to the girl and said that it was an honor to meet her. This girl was Charlotte Cardia, the first princess of the Cardia Empire. Charlotte was also glad that she and Nadia finally met. Charlotte went down to Nadia and told her that she could raise her head. Nadia had been a constant topic of conversation in high society lately, and Charlotte was always curious to know what kind of person she was. Now, Charlotte saw that Nadia was quite an ordinary woman to be the center of such conversations. Then Charlotte said that it didn't matter. In fact, she wanted to ask Nadia one question. Charlotte was taught that it is best to listen to the interested party's opinion directly. Charlotte told Nadia that she intended to propose to Heinrich, and she was interested in what Nadia thought about it. Nadia told Charlotte that she believed that she should have one of the best people in the empire by her side, like Duke Boldvan. Charlotte said that she heard that Nadia was Henry's beloved. She didn't understand whether Nadia would give in to her so easily. Nadia told Charlotte that for her, the princess's desire came before her feelings. Charlotte didn't expect that Nadia would just refuse Heinrich. She became bored. But Nadia suddenly told Charlotte that she would never join the Boldvan family. Charlotte was surprised when Nadia said that the Boldvan family has been known as the Sword of the Empire since ancient times. The sword protects the imperial family and is not hidden behind it. This order has never been violated since the very foundation of the state. From the fact that Charlotte was doing things that were disruptive to the order, Nadia realized that Charlotte cared about the empire more than anyone else. Charlotte laughed and told Nadia that despite being a lowly daughter of a baronial family, she was quite brave. Charlotte smiled and told Nadia that she liked her very much. Charlotte asked Nadia how she knew she was testing her. Nadia told the princess that she was not in a position to judge her intentions, and she simply trusted her as the future monarch. Charlotte noticed that Nadia was quite cheeky for a girl who had just made her debut. Charlotte found it strange that such a man could come from the fading Hesse family. Charlotte decided that Baron Hesse was in luck, and she found all this very interesting. The emperor sat on the balcony and was bored, watching the ball. Then the oar turned around and saw someone. He was very happy about this person. It was a young girl named Tasha. The emperor asked her where she had been all this time. Tasha replied that she had been watching him from the side. Tasha told the emperor that even if he never sees her, she is always watching him. Nadia noticed all this. Charlotte too. She was glad that the girl finally appeared. Nadia asked Charlotte who the girl was, and she replied that it was Tasha, the emperor's mistress. Nadia understood who Vivian was talking about. She was saying that the emperor was madly in love with his favorite, which created problems. He was busy with this girl and had no time for politics, which is why he had been in a cold war with the empire for a long time. Nadia didn't understand what had happened. The relationship between the emperor and empress, whom she had known before, was at least built on respect. Charlotte noticed someone and told Nadia that it was time for her to go. It was Henry. He told Charlotte that he expected her to be here. Charlotte asked Henry why he was late, because he should be next to his beloved at her special moment. Henry told Charlotte that he would handle his own affairs, but he was curious about what they had discussed. Charlotte smiled at Henry and said that they were discussing women's secrets. After this, Charlotte left, wishing Henry and Nadia a pleasant time. Heinrich asked Nadia what they were talking about and whether something had happened. Nadia said that everything was fine. Henry realized that Charlotte was once again doing as she pleased. Nadia didn't understand whether Henry was close to the princess. She thought they were friends. Nadia suddenly felt unwell. She had the feeling that she was suffocating. Heinrich noticed this and asked Nadia what was wrong with her. But Nadia said that everything was fine. Nadia said that she was just very nervous. Heinrich approached Nadia and asked her if she would mind dancing with him then.